Chapter 446. In the blink of an eye, 5 powerful experts fell consecutively. Such a scene caused Wang Jian to feel a chill running down his spine. They had been tricked. This person had intentionally lured them here so that he could kill them. If not, with so many experts present, it would be impossible for Qin Wentian to kill them in front of so many people. However, the Chen clan and the Wang clan would never have thought of such an ending. Among the experts of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, they clearly held a great advantage. This was why they dared to block the path of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, allowing them to settle the battle themselves. That gigantic sword, what divine weapon is that? Wang Jian stared at the gigantic sword in Qin Wentian's hands. The might of that sword was boundless, capable of killing a living person. One must know that Heavenly Dipper sovereigns all had astral novas that were comparable to divine weapons, and were even more proficient in wielding them. Hence, unless Heavenly Dipper sovereigns had an extremely powerful divine weapon, they might as well not use it. For astral novas were much more powerful compared to divine weapons, and could be unleashed freely. However, the divine weapon of the young man surnamed D seemed to be exceptionally powerful. In truth, Qin Wentian's gigantic sword wasn't some high-tier divine weapon. It was just that he had asked the White Deer Institute to forge a heavy and sharp divine weapon for him, allowing him to unleash his full strength, making others unable to tell how strong he was. Retreat. At this moment, Wang Jian roared. Momentarily, the 3 experts from the Wang clan all retreated, only to see Qin Wentian's countenance turning ice-cold. Executing the rock flash, his silhouette transformed into a great rock, instantly appearing in front of one of the experts. The gigantic sword slashed out, shattering the void. This was an innate technique he created himself. This innate technique incorporated the 2nd level of the mandate of force, the void shockwave, into the 3rd stance of the Great Dream Halberd art, shattering the void. After which, he infused it with his tyrannical sword intent, borrowing the sword intent of the Tao of Kings into the gigantic sword. In addition to his own tyrannical strength, it was unknown how powerful the shockwave was. Even a 3rd-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign would have their heart and meridians ruptured if they were struck by it. That person was struck by the void rend as an explosive sound rang out from his body. Despite the terrifying radiance of a divine weapon, he was still killed by the impact. In the blink of an eye, only Wang Jian and the last person were left. Both of them were taken aback. They didn't expect the combat prowess of this person to be so terrifying. The 2 of them hurriedly fled, only to see that Qin Wentian had executed stellar transposition as he used rock flash. His gigantic sword slammed into the body of the last person, instantly killing him. Only Wang Jian was left. "You can't get away." A cold voice rang out from behind Wang Jian, causing him to abruptly turn around. With a howl of rage, numerous divine weapons materialized in the air as they all erupted forth, piercing towards Qin Wentian. Boom! As the stellar transposition was executed, Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared directly in front of Wang Jian. A terrifying demonic qi gushed forth from his palms, as an incomparably tyrannical strength blasted the gigantic sword away. Wang Jian's countenance turned pale as he stared at Qin Wentian. Was this one of the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, stellar transposition? In the midst of his despair, a layer of armor appeared around Wang Jian's body. His astral novas were frenziedly released as he blasted them forward, the sharpness of the sword sweeping through everything. Wherever the gigantic sword passed by, Wang Jian's astral novas were all blasted apart, slamming into the barrier of light formed by Wang Jian's palms. A crisp cracking sound rang out as the black gigantic sword pierced through the body of Wang Jian, killing him. Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as it collected the interspatial rings of those who died. After which, it returned to the side of Qin Wentian, and passed the interspatial ring to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian patted Little Rascal on its head as he continued on his way. Over there, the battle was extremely intense. When Qin Wentian arrived at the battlefield, Bai Qing and Ouyang Guangxing were currently fighting against Chen Wang. Chu Mang, Fan Lo and the rest were also fighting against their own opponents. Upon seeing the appearance of Qin Wentian, the gazes of the crowd all froze. Earlier, the number of experts pursuing Qin Wentian was the highest. There were at least 7 or 8 of them who were prepared to deal with him first. Yet now he actually returned here. What about those experts who were pursuing him? As they thought of this, the hearts of the crowd abruptly turned cold as they involuntarily shivered. Among those who were pursuing him, there were several third-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. Yet Qin Wentian had returned safely to the battlefield. Yet there was no longer any commotion. What did this mean? Although the crowd didn't want to believe it, they still felt a chill down their spines. Only to see Qin Wentian's gaze landing on Chen Wang as he slowly stepped out. Chen Wang's strength was indeed powerful. His flame clone was able to suppress both Bai Qing and Ouyang Guangxing. If it weren't for the fact that Bai Qing and Ouyang Guangxing's attacks were extremely tyrannical, they would have already died under Chen Wang's hands. Not only that, from Chen Wang's aura, it seemed that he wasn't too far away from the third level of Heavenly Dipper. Although Chen Wang was ranked second, his combat prowess was still exceedingly high. With his combat prowess, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill someone at the third level of Heavenly Dipper. At this moment, Qin Wentian was thinking in his heart that if Chen Wang died, the great Solar Qin clan would definitely feel a heartache. Chen Wang, be careful. Someone in the crowd noticed Qin Wentian walking towards Chen Wang as he warned. Beastie. A raging wind gusted by. The person who spoke earlier was in the midst of battle, when he suddenly felt the sound of the wind whistling by. He instantly knew that he was in danger, but the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were restricting him, causing him to have no time to react. He could only retaliate with an incomparably gigantic flaming palm imprint. Pung! The black-colored gigantic sword directly slashed apart the palm imprint, shattering it into pieces. The countenance of that person turned pale with fright. He instantly turned his palms and slammed them towards Qin Wentian's black-colored gigantic sword. At the instant the gigantic sword collided with the palm imprint, a terrifying shockwave blasted into his body. With a piercing sound, he spat out fresh blood as all his vitality was destroyed. Behind him, that expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan blasted out a punch that directly landed on his body, extinguishing the last of his vitality. This person is so powerful. The hearts of the spectators turned even colder. With someone who could kill so many third-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns interfering in this battle, the situation would definitely be unsalvageable. Gather! Chen Wang roared. After blasting out a palm strike, he retreated. Momentarily, the experts from the Wang clan and the Chen clan all retreated, preparing to gather together. If not, they would be killed one by the young man surnamed D. Chen Wang and the rest gathered together. The violent qi currents they exuded gave off a stifling pressure. Ouyang Guangxing and the rest also rushed forward, unknowingly gathering together as well. They glanced at Qin Wentian only to hear Ouyang Guangxing laughing. "Sir, your strength is so strong. Why don't we join forces and annihilate these people?" "That's exactly what I was thinking." Qin Wentian nodded. Although he wanted to reunite with Ouyang Guangxing and the rest, he knew that it wasn't the right time yet. This time, he transformed into Di Tian and appeared in the sights of Grand Xia. If he didn't turn Grand Xia upside down, he wouldn't rest until he turned Grand Xia upside down. "Chu Mang, Fan Lo, the two of you control the entire situation." Ouyang Guangxing roared. Fan Lo and Chu Mang nodded in agreement. The two of them flew in two different directions as their astral arrows appeared. Now that the two of them had grown stronger and stronger, it was unknown how terrifying the might of their arrows were. They were like golden bolts of lightning, capable of reaping lives in the blink of an eye. "Brother D, how about the two of us attack from the front?" Ouyang Guangxing stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's combat prowess was tyrannical. If they joined forces with him to attack from the front, Bai Qing would act as the support. Chu Meng and Fan Lu would pursue with their arrows, and the others would assist them in battle. Their combat prowess would definitely be terrifying. Naturally. Qin Wentian nodded, his hands gripping tightly onto the black greatsword. Beside him, Ouyang Guangxing and the rest, the other experts all released their astral novas as they floated in the air, exuding a terrifying might. The experts from both sides didn't dare to move recklessly. At this moment, the experts from both sides were gathered together. If they were to move recklessly, they would instantly become the target of the attacks. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of arrows piercing through the air rang out. Abruptly, A series of astral arrows shot forth. 9 arrows shot out simultaneously. A total of 18 arrows instantly enveloped everyone within. Not only that, after this round of arrows, there were still more arrows shooting out. Chen Wang and the rest immediately waved their hands to block the incoming arrows. Both Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing moved. Ouyang Guangxing's entire body erupted forth with a towering might of lightning fire. Above his head, a gigantic lightning saber materialized, congregating the lightning bolts together, frenziedly compressing together, causing each and every strand of lightning to contain an overwhelming destructive might. Careful, that's the Thunder God's Slash. Chen Wang's countenance stiffened. The Thunder God's Slash was one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, the strongest single-target attack. Even with Ouyang Guangxing's strength, a single slash would be able to drain half of his Yuan Fu dry of astral energy. One could very well imagine the destructive might of this strike. Generally speaking, innate techniques that expended a large amount of astral energy would definitely be extremely powerful. Not all innate techniques would be able to expend a large amount of astral energy. However, the Thunder God's Slash was able to condense a terrifying amount of astral energy. The blood in Qin Wentian's body seemed to be seething with rage. Taking a step forward, the might of his astral novas seemed to be able to crush the astral novas of his opponents. The black-colored greatsword in his hand exuded a terrifying might, as though it was prepared to coordinate with Ouyang Guangxing's attack at any moment. Pung. Stellar transposition. Ouyang Guangxing's silhouette directly vanished, reappearing right in front of Chen Wang and the rest. The Thunder God's Slash directly slashed out, splitting the void into 2. Several people's astral novas were directly severed, while the others hurriedly retreated. Qin Wentian appeared almost at the same instant. His black-colored greatsword unleashed a spatial laceration as a terrifying sword shockwave swept through the air, lacerating everything in its path. Cool. The destructive power of the 2 of them caused Fan Lu to howl in excitement. Arrows shot out from his body, their speed incomparably fast. One of the astral novas failed to evade in time, and was pierced through the center of his brows. After all, Fan Li's arrows could change direction. Pung! 2 beams of astral light flashed. Chu Meng executed stellar transposition after shooting out his arrows, cleaving towards his opponents. Other than him, Bai Qing also executed stellar transposition, executing the 9 slashes of the Purgatory Saber art. Instantly, fresh blood splattered through the air. Tragic, the explosive power of the collision caused the spectators to have no time to react. It was too tragic. These people were all proficient in the ultimate art of Grand Xia, stellar transposition. From the very beginning, the outcome of this battle was already determined. Chen Wang and the 2 from the Chen clan were fine, because they too were proficient in stellar transposition. When the Thunder God's Slash slashed towards them, they had already dodged it. However, this undoubtedly weakened the resistance of the other astral novas. The combined might of the Thunder God's Slash was instantly disintegrated, and 3 of them were instantly slain while the other 3 were injured. In the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, the experts from the various transcendent powers were still in a stalemate. But at this moment, an expert from the Chen clan had an extremely unsightly expression on his face. Chen Wang had actually sent out a distress signal. Not good. That expert instantly turned and fled. The Ouyang aristocrat clan and the others couldn't help but to reveal a sharp glint in their eyes when they saw the experts from the Chen clan turning and fleeing. Stop them! A cold voice rang out, instantly turning the situation around. It was the Chen clan's alliance that wanted to send reinforcements, yet the Ouyang aristocrat clan's alliance wanted to intercept them. Such a scene caused the spectators to have strange looks on their faces. What was going on over there? The experts from the Chen clan and Wang Jian should have the advantage, right? Chapter 447. In the ancient kingdom, the situation was reversed. The experts of the Great Solar Chen clan were facing an encirclement, but they didn't hesitate to split up and break through the encirclement. After which, they sped towards the outskirts of Ginkgu. And in the mountain range outside of Ginkgu, the situation was already very clear. Chen Wang and the rest retreated step by step. At this moment, the experts on their side were at an absolute disadvantage. Go! Chen Wang turned and fled in the direction he came from. The silhouettes of those beside him flickered as Qin Wentian, and the rest naturally chased after him with lightning speed. BZ. Astral light flashed as Chen Wang directly executed stellar transposition. His silhouette appeared in front of Qin Wentian. This person wielded a black-colored greatsword and was extremely powerful. Earlier, if it wasn't for him, the situation wouldn't have been so one-sided. Before leaving, Chen Wang wanted to kill this brat as well. The instant he appeared in front of Qin Wentian, he blasted out a lava-like palm imprint, causing the entire space to be engulfed in lava. Qin Wentian's body was about to be ignited by the will of the mandate. However, how strong was Qin Wentian's perception? The instant Chen Wang executed stellar transposition, he had already sensed it. The palm imprint on his left hand turned the color of blood as it blasted forth, containing the power of destruction within. Chen Wang's countenance stiffened as astral light erupted forth once more. Because he was afraid of the blood curse imprint, he didn't dare to clash head-on with it. If not, both sides would suffer grievous injuries. But just as his silhouette appeared in another dimension, a whistling sound filled the air as a heaven-piercing sword might enveloped him. That black-colored greatsword was hurled towards Qin Wentian, wanting to cleave him into two. At the same time, Fan Lu and Chu Meng's arrows also descended upon Qin Wentian, aiming to cleave him into two. Chen Wang's countenance turned ashen as he executed stellar transposition once more, fleeing in another direction. "Leave him to me," Qin Wentian spoke, as he dashed towards the direction of Chen Wang. Ouyang Guangxing could sense the confidence in Qin Wentian's voice. He nodded his head, and the group of them continued their pursuit. Chen Wang was proficient in the stellar transposition technique, and his combat prowess was also exceedingly high. Ouyang Guangxing had to admit that it was still impossible for him to contend against Chen Wang. Even if they continued to hold the absolute advantage, it would be easier said than done if they wanted to kill Chen Wang. This young man surnamed D had actually managed to escape unscathed from the pursuit of so many experts. Those people never appeared again. Perhaps he really could bring about the end of the Chen King. Ouyang Guangxing, Bai Qing and the rest continued their pursuit, while Qin Wentian advanced in the direction of Chen Wang. Little Rascal appeared beneath Qin Wentian, and with a flap of its wings, a raging wind blew, its speed incomparably fast. Qin Wentian's perception was locked onto Chen Wang. Even for the current Chen Wang, there was a limit to how far he could travel in an instant using stellar transposition. After all, stellar transposition was only an innate technique that allowed one to increase one's speed. It wasn't true spatial teleportation. It was impossible for him to escape from Qin Wentian's pursuit. However, as the two of them sped away, Chen Wang discovered that Qin Wentian was the only one chasing after him. A cold glint of killing intent involuntarily flickered in Chen Wang's eyes. Qin Wentian continued advancing, yet his countenance was as calm as ever. There wasn't the slightest hint of panic or nervousness on his face. His curled lips were as sharp as the edge of a blade. Not long after, the two of them were already an unknown distance away from the other group. Chen Wang's silhouette landed on top of a small hill, as he turned his head to stare at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian halted as well, only to see Chen Wang's calm eyes flickering with a hint of mockery. His hands were clasped behind his back as he stared at Qin Wentian. Who would have thought that someone would actually die from stupidity? From Chen Wang's point of view, Qin Wentian chasing after him alone was an act of stupidity and foolishness. At this moment, his gaze was filled with unmasked disdain and mockery. The great solar bloodline in his body gushed forth, as a scorching heat akin to magma erupted forth with him as the center. The yellow soil beneath his feet was directly incinerated into dust, evaporating into thin air. One could very well imagine how high the temperature of Chen Wang's body was at this moment. At the same instant, two flaming giants manifested from his body. Although Chen Wang was arrogant, he wasn't an idiot. Qin Wentian was able to escape unscathed from the pursuit of so many people, and even managed to kill his opponents. His combat prowess was extremely high, but in a one-on-one battle, only death awaited him. After I kill you, I will kill all those who came here today, not leaving a single one alive. As the sound of Chen Wang's voice faded, his fourth astral nova appeared. It was in the form of a magma giant, and the magma around it flowed like liquid, as though it could disintegrate at any moment. In addition to his mandate of fire, the mandate of hardening, this fourth astral nova had the ability to transform. Go. Chen Wang pointed his finger at Qin Wentian, and momentarily, the flaming giants all rushed towards Qin Wentian. The magma giant directly blasted out with a palm, as the magma on its body transformed into liquid droplets that shot towards Qin Wentian. Bai Qing and Ouyang Guangxing were both proficient in stellar transposition, hence they were able to keep him occupied. But Chen Wang was confident that killing the person in front of him wouldn't be a problem at all. Qin Wentian's black-colored greatsword swept out, transforming into a screen of swords that blocked the incoming magma. Stepping out, a terrifying sword might gushed forth as his black-colored greatsword slashed out, piercing into the body of the magma giant. However, the magma giant directly melted into liquid, flowing towards his black-colored greatsword as it continued to lunge towards Qin Wentian. At the same time, the other two flaming giants also blasted out, blasting out with their palms. A cold smile flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes as astral energy abruptly erupted forth. His silhouette vanished from sight as the great sword in his hand pierced towards Chen Wang's body. Chen Wang's countenance drastically changed as he explosively retreated. A towering great solar radiance gushed forth from his body as the flames of the heavens blazed forth. Go! Qin Wentian's palm slammed out as the greatsword pierced through the air, aiming for Chen Wang. Peng! Stellar transposition. Chen Wang's silhouette vanished from sight. At this moment, his heart was filled with shock. How could this be? Qin Wentian had also cultivated stellar transposition? At the instant Chen Wang's silhouette flickered, a blood-colored palm imprint blasted out towards him. Chen Wang's countenance drastically changed as he hurriedly executed stellar transposition once more. However, it was useless. Just as he steadied himself, Qin Wentian appeared once more, using the same blood curse imprint as well, exuding a towering blood-colored might that could instantly turn a person into a pile of bones. Pung pung pung, the two silhouettes unceasingly executed stellar transposition. Finally, Chen Wang felt that the yuan fu in his body was about to be completely depleted. This time around, he directly teleported to the side of the lava giant and no longer dodged. His great solar universe palm imprint erupted forth with the power to incinerate the mountains and boil the seas, slamming towards the blood-colored palm imprint. Boom! The two palm imprints collided. Chen Wang instantly felt the flesh and blood on his arm corroding away. The corrosive might was extremely tyrannical. There was no way to block it at all. The blood curse imprint was one of the most tyrannical innate techniques in Grand Xia. At the same time, the might of his great solar bloodline gushed into Qin Wentian's arm. However, he could clearly sense an even more terrifying surge of sword might from Qin Wentian's great solar bloodline. Howling in rage, wanting to tear him apart, the lava giant transformed into a pool of lava, lunging towards Qin Wentian, wanting to bury him within the lava. However, Qin Wentian's astral light erupted as Qin Wentian once again executed stellar transposition. The sound of a sword keening rang out, and Chen Wang felt a sense of impending doom. Luckily, he was already prepared. With a flick of his fingers, he crushed something in his palm, causing a fiery glow to soar up into the skies, enveloping his body within. The sword light that was about to land on Chen Wang's neck was actually blocked by a screen of flames, emitting a crisp sound. This caused Qin Wentian's countenance to stiffen as he retreated, staring at the terrifying screen of flames that enveloped Chen Wang. Chen Wang had the potential to become the future leader of the great Solar Qin clan. He naturally had a life-saving treasure on him. This treasure was exceedingly precious, and when Chen Wang was in a disadvantageous position in the earlier battles, he only sent a message to his clan members and didn't use it. But now that he was in a life-and-death situation, he had no choice but to use it. Staring at Qin Wentian, a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from Chen Wang. Who are you exactly? Chen Wang stomped the ground, staring at Qin Wentian. This person wasn't only proficient in the blood curse imprint, he had also cultivated stellar transposition. Qin Wentian stared at the fiery glow, only to see him turning around abruptly and riding on the back of the great rock, leaving the area. Chen Wang's eyes flickered as a ball of flames shot up into the skies. After which, he dashed out, chasing after Qin Wentian. From afar, an expert from the great Solar Qin clan who had just broken out of the encirclement noticed the fiery glow in the skies. His silhouette flickered as he dashed over. Not long later, Qin Wentian was blocked by a middle-aged man at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper Sovereign. Chen Wang. Chen Xiao stared at Chen Wang in disbelief. To think that Chen Wang was forced to use his life-saving treasure. Uncle Xiao, this man is proficient in stellar transposition. He has some secrets on him, kill him. Chen Wang spoke coldly. Chen Xiao nodded as he dashed towards Qin Wentian. The great rock abruptly soared up into the skies, chasing after Qin Wentian. Where do you think you're going? Chen Xiao and Chen Wang soared up into the skies as well, unwilling to let Qin Wentian escape. This man was a demon-level talent, and had secrets on him. They had to kill him no matter what. The three of them, as well as the great rock, soared into the skies, gradually descending. Clouds and mist permeated the air, blocking the vision of others. However, Chen Xiao and Chen Wang's eyes shone with a fiery light as they stared fixedly at Qin Wentian and the great rock. Boom! From Qin Wentian. A towering might from his bloodline abruptly erupted forth, as a demonic aura that would cause the hearts of people to tremble violently gushed forth. His physique grew taller and taller as an aura of an overlord gushed forth from him. Chen Xiao furrowed his brows. He stared at the screen of light around Chen Wang that was growing weaker and weaker. He couldn't help but remind Chen Wang, there's something strange about this man. Why don't you leave first? Chen Wang shook his head. In such a situation, Qin Wentian still wanted to flee? He had no way to accept such humiliation. The great rock didn't know how high the heavens were. It continued soaring higher and higher into the skies. The screen of light around Chen Wang grew weaker and weaker, causing Chen Xiao to furrow his brows. Qin Wentian seemed to know that the screen of light around Chen Wang had a time limit, and was intentionally exhausting him. Chen Wang, Chen Xiao called out once more. Chen Wang furrowed his brows, finding it hard to accept. But when he felt the screen of light weakening, he could only stop. Boom! An aura at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper gushed forth from the silhouette in the skies. The great rock stopped as Qin Wentian stared downwards, like the sovereign of the skies. The blood in his body seethed, akin to a demon. Chen Wang stared at this silhouette. He felt a sense of déjà vu abruptly. Chen Wang's countenance drastically changed as an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. Such an aura he had once seen it on the arena platform of the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fate ranking. Chapter 448. That devilishly handsome silhouette, a great rock, and the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, the blood curse imprint and stellar transposition. Although Qin Wentian wasn't proficient in any of the 9 ultimate arts, now that he had obtained the divine steel, he should be the same as Ouyang Guangxing and the others, proficient in any of the 9 ultimate arts. As he thought of this, Chen Wang inclined his head and stared at the silhouette standing on the back of the great rock. His heart pounded violently as his countenance instantly turned pale. It was him. It had to be him. He didn't die in the Pill Emperor Hall. Now he had transformed into another person and returned. His bloodline seemed to have grown even stronger, like the sovereign of all demons. The eruption of his bloodline actually allowed him to break through the limits of his cultivation base, exuding the aura of a 3rd-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Thinking of this person's combat prowess, Chen Wang abruptly called out to Chen Xiao. It's Qin Wentian, Uncle Xiao, let's go. Qin Wentian. Upon hearing this name, Chen Xiao's heart trembled. This name was simply too familiar. Over a year ago, which corner of Grand Xia wasn't talking about the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian? This person was actually Qin Wentian? A supreme sharpness erupted forth as the king's sword manifested. This was none other than Qin Wentian's astral nova. Pung. Stellar transposition. Qin Wentian vanished from sight with the king's sword in his hand. Chen Zhao's countenance drastically changed as he too executed stellar transposition, turning and fleeing. The two of them transformed into motes of astral light. And finally, the keening of a sword rang out as fresh blood splattered down from the skies. A silhouette whistled past as Chen Xiao descended from the skies. This person had a cultivation base at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. If he fought against Qin Wentian head-on, he might be able to hold out for some time. However, the first thing he thought of was to flee. Under the effect of stellar transposition, Qin Wentian's tyrannical perception captured every movement of his. His mandate of sword melody erupted forth, severing his life. At the instant Chen Xiao fled, Chen Wang had already fled in the opposite direction. Yet he was intercepted by the Great Rock. The speed of the Great Rock was exceedingly fast. It actually managed to delay Chen Wang for a few moments. At this moment, Qin Wentian descended from the skies, walking towards Chen Wang with unmasked killing intent in his eyes. Qin Wentian, if you let me go today, I will definitely convince my clan to let the grudges between us be written off. Chen Wang stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke. At this moment, the most important thing to him was to preserve his life. Earlier when he was defeated in the hands of Qin Wentian, he didn't hesitate to use a life-saving technique. Because of this, in addition to the fact that Chen Xiao was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, he chased after Qin Wentian to kill him. Yet he had never imagined that his opponent would be Qin Wentian. He had been concealing his true strength, and now, it was already too late for regrets. If he knew that this person was Qin Wentian, he wouldn't have chased after him to this extent. Sword intent permeated the air. Qin Wentian didn't reply to Chen Wang. Stepping out, a stifling pressure enveloped Chen Wang. Although he had lured Chen Wang and Chen Xiao away from the others, he still had to kill them as soon as possible. In this world, anything could happen. Back then when he ascended the Pill Emperor Hall, who would have thought that he would be able to cleave the Pill Emperor Hall into two with a single strike? Hence, he could be arrogant, but he wouldn't underestimate his opponent. Pung! Astral light erupted as Chen Wang's silhouette abruptly appeared in front of Qin Wentian. The lava giant dashed out, transforming into liquid lava as it lunged towards Qin Wentian. Chen Wang wasn't a benevolent person. He had already prepared himself for the worst when he spoke. Busy. The wind whistled as Qin Wentian's sword flashed, piercing through Chen Wang's throat. Chen Wang's body stiffened as he clutched his throat with both hands. An expression of unwillingness could be seen in his eyes. He was unwilling. He was Chen Wang, a heaven's chosen of the Chen clan. He was unwilling. He had the potential to become the future leader of the Chen clan. He had already obtained an ancient medallion. He would have the chance to leave Grand Xia and head to the sacred ground to temper himself. But now, the arrogant him was about to die. When he thought back to the past, everything felt like a dream. Ever since he heard of Qin Wentian's name, his life seemed to have changed. It was like a nightmare. He still remembered the first time he met Qin Wentian. It should have been at the Chen clan. From afar, he cast a glance at Qin Wentian, who had entered the Chen clan together with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Qin Wentian had challenged a few youths from the Chen clan, displaying his extraordinary strength. But at that time he didn't even bother to look at Qin Wentian. Never would he have imagined that the weak-looking young man would become his nightmare. After that, Qin Wentian started to display his brilliance in the Heavenly Fate rankings, defeating him and claiming the first position. From then on, he, Chen Wang, had to live in the shadow of Qin Wentian, and now he had to live in the shadow of Qin Wentian. Before his death, he suddenly thought of a sentence. How many outstanding characters were there in Grand Xia, but how many of them could stand at the peak, looking down on all the other mountains? Chen Wang closed his eyes as his body descended from the air. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, and with a wave of his hand, Chen Wang's body was swept up into the air. After which, Qin Wentian carried Chen Zhao's body with him as well. Only after that did he land on the back of the great rock and soared up into the clouds, flying towards the horizons. A day later, the news of yesterday's battle shook the entire Ginkgo continent. Ouyang Guangxing and the majority of the experts returned safely to their respective clans. However, the experts from the Chen clan, Hua clan, Wang clan, as well as the 9 mystical palace, didn't return. In a battle between transcendent powers, it would still be fine if both sides were in dire straits. But when one side was completely annihilated, the atmosphere was extremely heavy. Before the start of the Heavenly Fate rankings, it was as though a storm was brewing in the air. Especially in the midst of the great Solar Chen clan, There was an extremely conspicuous character, Chen Wang. The heavens chosen of the great solar Chen clan, Chen Wang, had disappeared and never returned. It was rumored that before he disappeared, he had sent out a distress signal, after which, the members of the Chen clan broke out of the encirclement to search for him. Yet they couldn't find him. Not even his corpse was found. Even a fourth-level heavenly dipper sovereign, Chen Xiao, who had gone to search for Chen Wang, had never returned. Although Chen Wang's radiance was suppressed by Hua Taishu and Qin Wentian, he was still the second ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings for 2 consecutive years. There was no need to doubt that he was a Heaven's chosen, and he was one of the candidates to become the future leader of the great solar Chen clan. His disappearance, one could very well imagine what kind of storm it would create. Right now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the other transcendent powers were all locked in their doors, and were even sending experts from their own clans to deal with the situation. Most probably, the Great Solar Chen clan was already discussing their next move. Within the Great Solar Chen clan, in a majestic great hall, several silhouettes were gathered. The person in the lead had a dignified countenance, yet a sinister look could be seen in his eyes. Has the investigation been completed? That person asked. Not yet. We're currently keeping an eye on those who participated in the battle, and are preparing to hunt them down at any moment. Chen Fan replied. The person in the lead nodded his head lightly. Chen Wang had already died. There was no doubt about this point. However, they had to find out who the culprit was. Since Chen Wang has already died, prepare to select a new successor to be nurtured. Also, the medallion on Chen Wang's body must be recovered at all costs. Yes. Everyone nodded their heads. They understood the importance of the medallion on Chen Wang's body. They absolutely couldn't lose it. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen so soon after the medallion was bestowed to Chen Wang? Seems like they were after the medallion. If not, who would be able to kill Chen Wang and Chen Xiao? Someone stated, his words causing many to nod their heads in agreement. Maybe this conflict was a plot against the medallion. If that was the case, things would be even more troublesome. First, prepare to control those who participated in the battle yesterday. We'll know after we interrogate a few more people. If there's really someone who is after the medallion, we have to find out which power it is. This medallion isn't something they can swallow for themselves. The person in the lead commanded. The Ouyang aristocrat clan, Mystic Moon sect, Jiang clan, as well as the other transcendent powers, had been in seclusion for the past few days. They had never imagined that Chen Wang would die. Not only that, the Chen clan seemed to have mobilized a terrifying force to monitor their movements. It was as though they were truly enraged. At this moment, they had to be extremely careful. However, the Chen clan didn't dare to launch an all-out war so easily. They were very clear on how terrifying the consequences would be if they started a war. No one dared to be careless. To Qin Wentian, he still didn't know what happened in Ginkgo. At this moment, he was arranging the resources he obtained from the interspatial ring. Naturally, the majority of them were Yuan meteor stones. Stellar martial cultivators needed to accumulate Yuan meteor stones for their cultivation. The higher their cultivation base, the more Yuan meteor stones they would need. Yesterday, after killing so many heavenly dipper sovereigns, the amount of Yuan meteor stones he obtained had greatly surprised him. At the same time, there were also many other innate techniques and treasures. However, to him, there weren't many that he could use. At this moment, an ancient medallion appeared in Qin Wentian's hands. This medallion emanated an extremely mysterious aura, as though it was extraordinary. This medallion was obtained from Chen Wang. Qin Wentian didn't know what use it had, but he knew that Chen Wang had placed the medallion in the best location in his interspatial ring. From this, one could tell how important this medallion was to Chen Wang. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. He was no longer a greenhorn, and had experienced many things over the years. He could clearly sense how extraordinary this medallion was. Attempting to probe the medallion with his consciousness, Qin Wentian discovered that he couldn't do so at all. There was a mysterious energy blocking his consciousness from entering the medallion. Since Chen Wang placed so much importance on this medallion, I should capture an expert from the Chen clan and interrogate him. Qin Wentian kept the medallion and stood up. His silhouette flickered as he once again sped towards Ginkgo. The lines on his face wriggled as Little Rascal transformed into a demonic lion, making it less conspicuous. After yesterday's battle, he still didn't know what the situation was like in Ginkgo. He naturally had to be more careful. Chapter 449. In the Ginkgo continent, the residence of the Mystic Moon sect was enveloped by an oppressive aura. In a certain courtyard, several experts were gathered there. "What's the situation outside?" a middle-aged woman asked. A voice replied, "The Chun clan has already surrounded this area, and they're gathering a terrifying amount of strength. I'm afraid they're here to kill us." "Master, is the Chun clan really going to initiate a war just for a single Chun Wang?" that woman asked. In the Grand Xia Empire, the various transcendent powers were constantly in conflict. Especially a few days ago, a great war had occurred, but a true war had never occurred before. A war between sects was a war that wouldn't rest until one side was annihilated. Nobody dared to initiate a war so casually. Even if one side had the advantage, they wouldn't dare to do so. For example, although the Great Solar Chin clan was much stronger than the Mystic Moon sect, the moment they initiated a war, the Mystic Moon sect would definitely retaliate. At that time, the experts of the Mystic Moon sect would infiltrate the Grand Xia Empire and hunt down the members of the Great Solar Chin clan. Unless the Great Solar Chin clan had the confidence to annihilate the Mystic Moon sect cleanly in one go. However, transcendent powers all had celestial phenomenon ascendants guarding them. How could it be so easy to annihilate them all? And if they failed to do so, the revenge of the ascendants would be extremely terrifying. Hence, although the conflict between the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Chun clan, Hua clan and the Mystic Moon sect was extremely intense, there was still some degree of restraint. For example, yesterday, when the transcendent powers fought, they only allowed 3rd and 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns to fight. The stronger ones didn't interfere at the start because they didn't want a war to break out. As for Chun Wang's pleas for help, and even his death, this was something that no one had expected. After all, the chosen of a sect or clan would all have some life-saving methods. Even if they were facing experts at the same level or two higher than them, they wouldn't die. However, Chun Wang had indeed died. And now the Great Solar Chin clan was prepared to pay any price to exact revenge. "I'm surprised as well. Bai Qing, what happened yesterday? Who was the one who killed Chun Wang?" The woman in the lead stared at Bai Qing as she asked. Bai Qing shook her head. "I also don't know how Chun Wang died. I only know that the young man surnamed D went to hunt him down. Although the strength of that young man surnamed D isn't bad, he's still only at the 2nd level of Heavenly Dipper. Even if his combat prowess is strong enough to defeat Chun Wang, it's still impossible for him to kill Chun Wang. Not only that, Chun Xiao, who was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, has already died. This isn't something he can accomplish. I'm afraid there's more to it than meets the eye." The lady in the lead spoke in a low voice. In truth, the Great Solar Chin clan also had the same thoughts, but no one knew the exact situation. Hence, they had no choice but to act against the Mystic Moon sect. After all, the relationship between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan was extremely close. It would be more difficult to make a move against them. "Did you ask for reinforcements?" the leader of the group asked again. The Ouyang aristocrat clan should already know about the situation here. Now that we have a common enemy, I'm sure the Ouyang aristocrat clan would understand. The person below slowly spoke. However, as he spoke, a boundless might gushed forth from the outside world. After that, a voice rang out. "Mystic Moon sect, hand over those who participated in the battle yesterday. If not, all of you shall be killed without mercy." This voice was extremely cold, filled with a terrifying killing intent, causing the lady in the lead to furrow her brows. "Those who are at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper and below, flee this place on your own. You would only be courting death if you participate in the battle. Those who are at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper and above, follow me and fight." The lady in the lead was extremely decisive, directly issuing the command. "Master, this matter started because of me. I won't leave." Bai Qing shook her head. Since things have already reached this point, there's no need to talk about who is at fault. To my Mystic Moon sect, preserving our strength and growing stronger in the future is the most important thing. Especially now that the Grand Xia Empire is in a state of chaos, a war between sects could erupt at any moment. Qing as a candidate to become the future leader of the Mystic Moon sect. Even if you can participate in the battle, you have no choice but to leave. The eyes of the lady in the lead were immeasurably deep. She gently stroked Bai Qing's long hair as her tone was filled with determination, causing Bai Qing's eyes to turn red. She stared at her. Master, don't say any more. If you continue to be so stubborn, you would be wasting my years of nurturing you. Don't call me master anymore. The lady berated, causing Bai Qing's words to come to an abrupt halt. When she thought of how selfless her master had been to her all these years, treating her like her own daughter, Bai Qing felt an extreme pain in her heart. She knelt on the ground and kowtowed thrice to her master, causing the earth to tremble. After which she turned and sped away, her silhouette gradually transforming into the netherworld, incomparably illusory. The battle outside had already erupted. The experts of the Great Solar Qin clan had already fought their way in. Staring at Bai Qing's departing silhouette, someone asked, "Do you want to protect Bai Qing as she breaks out of the encirclement?" No need. Qing has the Dark Night Astral Soul and the Netherworld Astral Soul. It won't be easy to capture her if she stealthily escapes. If you guys follow her, it would only backfire. Let's go meet the experts of the Great Solar Qin clan. The woman spoke. After that, she stepped out and instantly appeared in the air outside. She stared at a group of figures standing in the air. Below them, a tyrannical battle was taking place. The experts of the Qin clan had slaughtered their way into the Mystic Yin sect. Does the Great Solar Qin clan want to start an all-out war with the Mystic Moon sect? Bai Qing's master's voice rang out as she stared at the experts of the Great Solar Qin clan. Her heart pounded. She knew that today would be the end for the Mystic Moon sect. Seems like coming to Ginkgo was a mistake. But of course before this, nobody would have thought that such a situation would occur. Hand over the participants of the battle yesterday, and I will pretend that nothing has happened. That expert from the Great Solar Qin clan coldly spoke. Bai Qing's master coldly snorted. If they handed over the participants of the Mystic Moon sect to their deaths, how could their Mystic Moon sect still have a foothold in Grand Xia? From now on, their name would be cursed for eternity. The Great Solar Qin clan didn't hesitate to start a war between sects just to capture the participants. I'm afraid that you guys have already bestowed the sacred royal medallion to Qin Wang. Bai Qing's master faintly spoke. Instantly, the countenances of those beside her all froze as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. The eyes of the expert from the Great Solar Qin clan also turned sharp, akin to a sharp blade piercing towards the other party. Seems like my conjecture was right. The Great Solar Qin clan would only be bestowed 3 sacred royal medallions every 100 years. Seems like Qin Wang has already obtained one of the 3 medallions. But now, Qin Wang has disappeared, and the sacred royal medallion has also been lost. Bai Qing's master coldly spoke. The expert from the Great Solar Qin clan berated, "Shut up. Since you know about this, it seems like the Mystic Moon sect is the prime suspect. If you don't surrender now, we will kill all of you without mercy. Listen to my command, there's no need to fight to the death. Break out of the encirclement and return to the spirit continent." Bai Qing's master commanded. Momentarily, the experts from the Mystic Moon sect all started to break out of the encirclement, no longer fighting to the death. Bai Qing from the Mystic Moon sect must be captured. The expert from the Great Solar Qin clan commanded. Since Qin Wang had fallen, the Mystic Moon sect had lost a heaven chosen. In the direction where Bai Qing broke out of the encirclement, the sky darkened as night fell. A ghostly silhouette walked through the darkness, as though he had transformed into a shadow, blending into the darkness. Bang! A few experts from the Great Solar Qin clan appeared in the darkness. Towering flames erupted from their bodies as they unleashed their Great Solar Universe art, incinerating the mountains and boiling the seas. Their palms slammed out in a frenzy, wanting to force Bai Qing to act. A cold wind blew gently as a sinister intent abruptly gushed forth. After which, a devilish saber manifested in the darkness of the night, instantly killing an expert from the Chen clan. However, Bai Qing's silhouette also appeared as she madly fled into the distance. You won't be able to escape. In the air, a blazing figure soared through the air. The light of the great solar universe art enveloped Bai Qing, illuminating her body. Pung pung pung. Using stellar transposition, Bai Qing's silhouette flickered as she reappeared a great distance away. When she and Qin Wentian were trapped in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, they had naturally cultivated stellar transposition. Humph. How could the experts from the great Solar Chen clan spare her? They similarly used stellar transposition to chase after her, frenziedly fleeing through the streets of Ginkgu. In another location in Ginkgu, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan had indeed planned to act to aid the Mystic Moon sect. Now that the great Solar Chen clan had already shed all pretense of cordiality and wanted to initiate a war, they had to form an alliance. However, on their way to aid the great Solar Chen clan, they were obstructed by the Hua clan and Wang clan. Although they didn't want to initiate a war like the great Solar Chen clan, they were still able to obstruct the Ouyang aristocrat clan for a period of time. Qin Wentian didn't expect that killing Chen Wang and obtaining the ancient medallion would result in such a calamity. He once again returned to Ginkgu and entered an inn to enjoy some wine. As he did so, he heard the whispers of the people around him. How tragic! I didn't expect the great Solar Chen clan to be so ruthless. But since they've already decided to initiate a war, the great Solar Chen clan has already thrown caution to the wind. What happened to the Mystic Moon sect? A table full of people murmured, their words causing Qin Wentian's entire body to stiffen. Did something happen to the Mystic Moon sect? I heard that Bai Qing actually managed to escape from the encirclement of the great Solar Chen clan. However, she was injured in the process. Right now, the entire Ginkgu is searching for her, but from what I can see, I'm afraid that Bai Qing will walk right into the trap. Outside the Venerate Heaven's Gate, Bai Qing's master's corpse was hung upside down. Bai Qing had to go and collect the corpse herself. It would be difficult for her not to return. These people were all mumbling, and as the sound of their voices faded, Qin Wentian only felt his entire body turning cold. He abruptly turned his gaze over, staring at the person who spoke. An incomparably cold aura abruptly enveloped him, causing the countenance of the person who spoke to change drastically. "Senior, we spoke nonsense, please forgive us." They all thought that this person was an expert from the great Solar Chen clan who was angered by their words. What happened to those from the Mystic Moon sect? Qin Wentian asked. The few of them exchanged glances as their eyes flickered. It seemed like Qin Wentian wasn't someone from the great Solar Chen clan. Early this morning, the great Solar Chen clan surrounded the Mystic Moon sect, killing them all without mercy. Although the Mystic Moon sect tried their best to break out of the encirclement, only a few managed to escape. Bai Qing's master was also killed, and her corpse was hung upside down outside the Venerate Heaven's Gate. Bai Qing had to collect the corpse herself. One of them trembled as he spoke, especially when they felt the pressure of Qin Wentian's might enveloping them. It caused them to be even more cautious. Just because of the death of Chen Wang, the great Solar Chen clan went all out, even going so far as to humiliate the Mystic Moon sect to lure Bai Qing back. Qin Wentian's entire body turned ice cold, not only for Chen Wang, but also because of an ancient medallion on him. I heard that it's called the Sacred Royal Medallion. Those people respectfully replied, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. The Sacred Royal Medallion, it must be that ancient medallion. Gotcha. Qin Wentian's fists were tightly clenched as his body trembled. When he thought of the miserable state Bai Qing's master was in, an intense feeling of guilt surfaced in his heart. This matter had arisen because of him. Although he didn't expect that killing Chen Wang would cause such an intense reaction from the great Solar Chen clan, it was because of his actions that the Mystic Moon sect ended up in such a miserable state. Not only that, he even humiliated Bai Qing's master. His heart was filled with unbearable pain. Bai Qing's master must have doted on her dearly. Now that she had already died, she still had to endure the humiliation of the great Solar Chen clan. Great Solar Chen clan. Qin Wentian's eyes were scarlet red. The coldness radiating from him was so intense that the people who spoke earlier were forced to kneel on the ground. At this moment, the look in Qin Wentian's eyes was too terrifying. He could kill them all in a moment of rage. Bee. But at this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette directly dashed out of the inn. Only then did those people draw in a deep breath, their bodies still trembling as they silently guessed at the identity of that person. Chapter 450. Qin Wentian's figure flashed through Ginkgo City, and before long, he arrived at the Imperial Heaven Gate. Right now, experts from the Great Solar Qin clan were all gathered here. On top of the Imperial Heaven's Gate pillar, an ice-cold corpse could be seen hanging upside down. The scorching sun rays cascaded downwards, scorching the corpse. In front of the corpse, there was an ancient path. There was no one on this path, as if it was waiting for someone to walk over and walk right into the trap. When Qin Wentian saw the exposed corpse, a terrible flame seemed to be burning in his body. The Chun family was too cold-blooded. Even if it was a life-and-death grudge, there was no need for such humiliation. There were many massacres in Grand Xia every day, but since death was the end of it all, this was simply infuriating. For that ancient medallion, the sacred emperor medallion? Qin Wentian looked at the corpse with a strong sense of guilt. Standing in the crowd in the distance, he clenched his fists and bowed slightly to the dead body. Senior, this junior's actions have implicated the mystic Yin Palace. However, the Chun family will repay this debt with blood. Qin Wentian's heart turned cold. He turned around and left resolutely. The coldness in his eyes was terrifying. Now he must stop Qing from coming here. The Chun clan's actions alarmed all the major powers in Ginkgo. But when they heard that the sacred royal medallion had been lost, they faintly understood what was going on. No wonder the Chun clan was so furious. Not only had Chun Wang died, but the sacred royal medallion had also been bestowed upon Chun Wang, and had been lost along with his death. Now the Chun clan didn't mind offending the mystic Yin Hall to the death, just to retrieve the sacred royal medallion. When the incident occurred in Ginkgo, the mystic Moon Palace in the distant Serenity Prefecture also learned about it. Furious, the experts of the mystic Moon Palace had already set off for Ginkgo. The Chun clan had gone too far. This was no longer just a war between sects, but a battle to the death. In this matter, the Great Solar Qin clan had gone too far. Even if the corpses of the Dark Yin Palace were to fill up Ginkgo, they would not tolerate such a cruel insult. Qin Wentian went to look for Bai Qing, but it was already too late. Knowing that the corpse of her master, whom she owed a mountain of gratitude to, was hung upside down outside the Venerate Heaven's Gate, based on Bai Qing's personality, how could she endure such a thing? Although Bai Qing was known as the Netherworld Slaughter God, that was only when she faced her enemies. Right now, her personality was as cold as ice, and her heart was as cold as ice. This was especially so when the news of Qin Wentian's death circulated out from the Pill Emperor Hall. Her heart was like dead ashes, and she only wanted revenge. She could become enemies with Grand Xia, but when the people closest to her met with such misfortune, her heart was filled with incomparable pain. On the ancient pathway outside the Venerate Heaven's Gate, Bai Qing had already arrived. Naturally, she wasn't alone. Ouyang Quangxing and the rest were accompanying her. Although the Ouyang aristocrat clan didn't want Ouyang Quangxing to participate in this matter, they were clear that once the sacred royal medallion was involved, the Great Solar Qin clan would do anything to stop them. They didn't choose the Ouyang aristocrat clan to act because it was easier to deal with the Mystic Moon sect. If not, in the territory of Ginkgo, the Great Solar Qin clan would have no problems dealing with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. However, the Ouyang aristocrat clan had no way to stop the stubborn Ouyang Quangxing. He was determined to follow Bai Qing here, and no one could stop him. The Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan could only accompany him to the Venerate Heaven's Gate. The ancient pathway outside the Venerate Heaven's Gate was enveloped by an oppressive aura. Bai Qing continued forward, and no one blocked her path until she arrived in front of her master's corpse. Bai Qing knelt on the ground, kowtowing to her master as tears flowed unceasingly from her eyes. Master, disciple is unfilial and has failed to live up to your expectations, causing you to sacrifice yourself for this disciple. But since the Great Solar Qin clan has treated you so badly, Disciple has no choice but to come. Bai Qing stared at the silhouette in the air as she knelt there. She naturally knew that her master didn't wish for her to come here, but since the great Solar Qin clan had done so much, if she didn't come, how could she be qualified to be their disciple? Even if she knew the path ahead was a path of death, she had to come. Standing up, Bai Qing's silhouette flickered as she flew towards the corpse, bringing her master down. However, at the same instant she stepped down, a silhouette appeared beside her master. The might of this step was akin to the might of a terrifying flame, blasting onto Bai Qing, causing her to groan in misery. The silhouette in the air was none other than Chun Fan. Above his head, a blazing sun could be seen, cascading downwards, exuding a terrifying might. Who was the one who killed Qin Wang? Chun Fan's voice was cold as he stared down at Bai Qing. Bai Qing stared at Chun Fan. Devil might billowed in the air. She continued stepping up as a devil saber appeared in her hands, causing the heavens and earth to rumble. Bai Qing's entire body turned ice cold. The entire space seemed to have transformed into night. Her silhouette flickered as she instantly vanished, slashing out with her saber. Chun Fan coldly snorted as he stomped down once more. Boundless blazing sun rays cascaded down from the skies, blinding the eyes of those who saw it. When Bai Qing appeared in front of him, she felt as though her body was about to be incinerated. Chun Fan stabbed out with a single finger as the boundless blazing sun rays converged towards Bai Qing. Chi! The devil's saber shattered as Chun Fan's palm landed on Bai Qing, causing her to cough out blood. He then coldly asked, "Who was the one who killed Qin Wang?" Ouyang Guangxing and the rest flickered as they appeared beside Bai Qing. Jiang Ting hugged Bai Qing as they stared at Chun Fan, their countenances ice-cold. "Let me tell you, during the battle outside the Ginka continent, many from your Qin clan pursued that young man surnamed Di, but in the end, they all died in his hands. That young man then returned to deal with Qin Wang, but Qin Wang was no match for him, and was forced to flee. As for how he died, no one knows." Fan Li's countenance was ice-cold as he continued. "So the great Solar Qin clan is so weak. Their disciples were useless and were killed by others. Yet they still resorted to such methods to take revenge. How admirable. That young man surnamed Di has a cultivation base at the second level of Heavenly Dipper. How could Qin Wang be defeated by him?" Chun Fan didn't believe Fan Li's words. Even if Qin Wang was defeated, it was impossible for him to die. "That's the truth. Since you don't believe me, what's the point of asking?" Ouyang Guangxing coldly replied. In that case I shall leave Bai Qing behind. She shall replace her master, and hang here until someone reveals the truth, or until the sacred royal medallion appears again." Chun Fan's voice was cold. After which, with a wave of his hand, a violent wave of flames landed on the corpse of Bai Qing's master. Instantly, the corpse of Bai Qing's master was set ablaze, and very quickly, the corpse was turned into ashes. Pooh! Bai Qing coughed out a mouthful of blood upon seeing this scene. Her countenance paled. "Master!" Tears flowed down her face. Bai Qing thought of all the things her master had done for her. Back then, she left Chu alone and roamed the lands of Grand Xia, encountering countless dangers. Coincidentally, she managed to obtain the chaotic art of the Heavenly Devil, causing her body to explode from the brink of Qi deviation. Not only that, she also met with evil people who wanted to humiliate her. At that moment, it was her master who saved her life and brought her into the Mystic Moon sect to cultivate. After entering the Mystic Moon sect, her master guided her wholeheartedly. Every time her body couldn't withstand the pressure, her master would unclog the meridians in her body. At the same time, she also went to the demonic beast mountain range to gather precious ancient medicinal herbs for her, allowing her to bathe in medicinal herbs daily, nourishing her body and activating her meridians. Gradually, her cultivation of the art of the Heavenly Devil reached a certain level, allowing her to control it with ease. Back then, after knowing what her father did to Qin Wentian, Bai Qing's heart was like dead ashes, her heart cold. After experiencing so much treachery in the hearts of others, her master didn't mind at all, treating her like her own daughter and doting on her. To Bai Qing, her master's position in her heart made up for the motherly love she lacked. In fact, Her master's love even surpassed that of her father's. But now because of her, her master died. His corpse hung upside down, suffering such humiliation. And now, not even his bones remained, as he was incinerated into ashes. Bai Qing's body landed on the ground. She lowered her head and knelt on the ground as tears flowed unceasingly down her face. Disciple is unfilial. Bai Qing kowtowed, as though her heart was about to shatter. When she lifted her gaze, her long black hair fluttered in the wind as Devilmite towered up into the sky. The entire sky seemed to have darkened, transforming into night. She stood up, staring at Chen Fan in the air as a terrifying devilish intent flashed in her eyes. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind, exuding a cold aura, causing the spectators to be able to clearly feel the pain Bai Qing was feeling right now. From afar, Qin Wentian was madly sprinting over, only to see the back of Bai Qing's figure. That silhouette exuded boundless desolation. At this moment, he could naturally understand Bai Qing's feelings. Most probably, it was the same feeling he had back then in the Pill Emperor Hall. Ultimately, it was still too late. Qing, I've let you down. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart as the guilt and self-blame in his heart grew even more intense. Although he hadn't expected all of this to happen, it was all because of him that he had killed Chen Wang. That incident back then was witnessed by everyone in Ginkgo. It was because of the grudge between both parties that resulted in the clash outside Ginkgo. Chen Wang died, but nobody knows who the culprit was. If the Great Solar Chen clan thinks that we were the culprit, we can just accept it. Feel free to come and take our lives. But using such a method to humiliate a senior from the Mystic Moon sect, I, Ouyang Quangxing, swear that as long as I'm still alive, the Ouyang aristocrat clan will forever be enemies with the Great Solar Chen clan. Ouyang Quangxing stared at Chen Fan, his voice ice cold. In that case, you will also remain in Ginkgo. Chen Fan swept his gaze over to Ouyang Quangxing, his eyes gleaming with killing intent. No one can obstruct the Great Solar Chen clan. If the sacred royal medallion doesn't appear, this matter won't end here. Chen Fan coldly stated. That battle that day, who knows if you were the ones who intentionally lured our people over. Since the Mystic Moon sect participated in it, even death cannot wipe out their crimes. An expert from the Wang clan stood out. That day, the Wang clan had also suffered heavy losses. Just a few of your people died, and you are already so ruthless. But what about those of my generation who died? Another person stepped out. This person stared at Bai Qing as he stated, we have to capture this woman, only then will we be able to understand what happened that day. Ouyang Quangxing's gaze swept over to the person who spoke. This person appeared to be around 30 years of age, but Ouyang Quangxing knew that this person was already quite old. He was none other than an outstanding character from the Xiao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace, Xiao Han. The Nine Mystical Palace actually dared to participate in this matter? Do you think that just because you have the Great Solar Chen clan, you have the qualifications to speak to us on equal terms? The Nine Mystical Palace will definitely regret this. Ouyang Quangxing stared at Xiao Han. The Nine Mystical Palace was ranked last among the 36 transcendent powers. If it wasn't for the fact that they had a celestial phenomenon ascendant who was about to die of old age, they would have long since been removed from the transcendent powers. Let's not talk so far into the future. The matter today has yet to be concluded. Chen Fan coldly stated. The experts from the various transcendent powers all gathered together to suppress Bai Qing, who was in front of them. Chapter 451. Bai Qing's Devilmite towered up into the sky as she rushed towards Chen Fan. Even if she wasn't a match for him, she had to fight to the death. You overestimate yourself. Chen Fan's countenance was as cold as ice. His blazing sun astral nova radiated a terrifying heat as beams of light shot downwards, burning Bai Qing's body. It was impossible for Ouyang Quangxing and the rest to sit back and do nothing. All of them soared up into the air, and those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan behind him also made their moves. In another direction, the figure of the Chen family, who had been silent all this while, flashed. In the blink of an eye, a huge battle broke out. Terrifying air currents danced wildly in the air. It was just that the current Chen clan was no longer the Chen clan of the past few times. Right now, the Chen clan had gathered a terrifying lineup. In addition, the Mystic Moon Hall's experts who had come to Ginkgo had all died. Clearly, the Chen clan had the advantage in this battle. After all, this place was Ginkgo, the territory of the Chen clan. Even if the Chen clan didn't send out their celestial phenomenon ascendants, they would still have an absolute advantage. Not only that, there were still the Hua clan, Wang clan, and 9 mystical palace standing on the side of the Chen clan. Ouyang Guangxing is truly someone who values friendship. I heard that Bai Qing doesn't have much of a relationship with him. She's merely the younger sister of his brother, Qin Wentian. But now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan has been implicated as well. The hearts of the spectators mused. Right now, the great Solar Chen clan was willing to pay any price to retrieve the sacred royal medallion. The Ouyang aristocrat clan choosing this timing to clash with the great Solar Chen clan wasn't a wise choice. Chen Fan suppressed Bai Qing and Ouyang Guangxing, swiftly injuring Bai Qing. The disparity between their cultivation levels was simply too great. Chen Fan was originally the second ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings 9 years ago. How could Bai Qing and the rest be his opponents? Chen Fan's cultivation base was at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. He definitely wasn't inferior to Hua Taishu, who was at the 4th level. However, just as the two sides were fighting, a piece of paper suddenly flew over from the sky. Behind it was a set of clothes that fluttered in the wind as it flew towards the people from the Chen clan. When Chen Fan saw this, a terrifying light suddenly burst out from his eyes. He pressed his palm down, and in an instant, the void was enveloped by the scorching sun. At the same time, the cultivators of the Chen clan also put aside their battles and flashed towards the floating object. Chen Fan took the book with one hand and waved his hand to roll up his clothes. It's King Chen's robe. Chen Fan's expression was extremely sharp as he glanced around. Apparently, the person who killed Chen Wang had been nearby. The other experts of the Chen clan also stepped forward, as if they wanted to completely seal off the surrounding space. However, they couldn't see anything at all. It was as if the robe and the paper book had floated over from an extremely distant place. Chen Fan paper book. The expert from the Chen family came to Chen Fan's side and asked. Chen Fan looked at the page of the book and saw a line of words carved on it. In the Heavenly Fate ranking battle, the strongest will gather, the sacred royal medallion will appear. The words written on the paper were extremely clear, indicating that during the ranking battle, the sacred royal medallion would appear. It seemed that this was indeed not the work of the Dark Yin Palace. However, the Chen clan had never thought that it was the Dark Yin Palace. They only wanted to find out the truth, no matter the cost. It seems that everything we did was correct, said Chen Fan. His words caused the eyes of the members of the Chen clan to flicker as they looked at him. Right? This matter wasn't the work of the Mystic Moon sect. It wasn't appropriate for them to form such a grudge. But as they thought about it, their eyes gleamed with sharpness as they turned and stared at Bai Qing. These people were all people who had lived for a very long period of time. Their knowledge and experience were extraordinary, and they were all extremely intelligent people. Since the other party had stolen the sacred royal medallion, why would he send out a paper book at this moment, letting everyone know that the medallion was in his hands? In order to cause people to misunderstand, he could completely disappear without a trace, and nobody would know who he was. There was only one possibility for this person to do this. The actions of the Chen clan had caused the other party to feel trepidation. In that case, it must be Bai Qing. The other party was worried that they would harm Bai Qing. Hence he intentionally revealed the robe of King Chen, letting the Chen clan know that the sacred royal medallion was in his hands and had nothing to do with Bai Qing. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. The person who killed Chen Wang and stole the medallion was actually willing to reveal himself for you. In that case, all the more reason for us to capture you. Chen Fan stared at Bai Qing as he spoke, his words causing bewilderment in the hearts of the crowd, especially Ouyang Guangxing and the rest. The person who killed Chen Wang was willing to reveal himself for Bai Qing? Who exactly was it that killed Chen Wang and stole the sacred royal medallion? He had also heard of the sacred royal medallion before. If one obtained it, the first thing they would do would be to leave Ginkgo. But since he was willing to reveal himself for the sake of Bai Qing, One could tell that their relationship was definitely not ordinary. In that case, the Chun clan's massacre of the Mystic Moon sect has no evidence at all. Chun Wang and the Sacred Royal Medallion have nothing to do with the Mystic Moon sect or Bai Qing. Fan Li's voice was ice cold, his words causing Chun Fan to snort coldly. So what of it? If you're right, then you're right. If Bai Qing stays behind, I will allow you all to leave. If you continue to cause trouble, don't blame the Chun clan for killing you all. Ouyang Guangxing still stood there, his countenance cold. At this moment, another paper book floated over from afar. Chun Fan's silhouette flickered as he sped towards the end of the paper book. While he was speaking, his perception was constantly scanning the area, and as soon as the paper book appeared, his silhouette instantly vanished from sight. But very quickly, Chun Fan returned with a sinister expression on his face. Seems like our conjecture was right. The person who stole the medallion must be extremely powerful. If it wasn't so, how could the other party be able to deliver the paper book right under their noses? The expert from the Chun clan was currently reading the contents of the paper book. After he finished reading, he passed it to Chun Fan. Chun Fan swept his gaze over it as he stated in a low voice. If you dare to touch a single strand of Bai Qing's hair, the Sacred Royal Medallion will never appear again. Chun Fan clenched his fist, instantly incinerating the paper book into ashes. His eyes were ice cold as he stared at Bai Qing. I will wait until the day of the ranking battle. If you don't appear on that day, I will definitely make her suffer the cruelest humiliation in this world. Chun Fan's voice rumbled, echoing out in all directions. He believed that since the other party could transmit the paper book, they should be able to hear his words as well. To them, Bai Qing wasn't that important. Right now, their goal was the Sacred Royal Medallion. Every 100 years, only 3 Sacred Royal Medallions would be bestowed upon the great Solar Chun clan. In these 100 years, he, Chun Wang, and an extremely outstanding clan uncle had been bestowed with 3 medallions. The age gap between the 3 of them just so happened to span 100 years. Every single medallion was extremely valuable. How could they lose it? Upon hearing Chun Fan's words, those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan transmitted their voices to Ouyang Guangxing. The Chun clan obviously doesn't wish to completely fall out with us. Today, we are in a disadvantageous position. Let's endure it for now and wait for the experts from our clan to arrive before we make further plans. Not only that, since the other party dared to say that he would appear during the ranking battle, he would definitely be prepared. The Chun clan had already offended the Mystic Moon sect. If they could avoid it, they didn't want to start an all-out war with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Even if the Sacred Royal Medallion appeared, they didn't intend to exterminate the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Ouyang Guangxing stared at Bai Qing as he clenched his fists tightly. If we continue fighting today, it would be akin to throwing an egg against a rock. Even if we die, we won't be able to live in peace. Not only that, since Chun Fan promised not to touch Bai Qing, he wouldn't dare to go against the Sacred Royal Medallion. Bai Qing, don't be rash for now. The experts from the Mystic Moon sect are already on their way. Endure it for a few more days. You still have to avenge your master. Ouyang Guangxing transmitted his voiceover. Bai Qing's heart trembled, but her eyes were as cold as ice. If she died, who would avenge her master? Retracting her aura, Bai Qing stared at the faces of the experts from the Chun clan and 9 Mystical Palace, as though she wanted to engrave their faces in her heart. Count yourself lucky, Xiaohan coldly stated as he glanced at Bai Qing. The matter here was settled because of the 2 pages of the scroll, after which the crowd departed. Bai Qing followed the experts from the Chun clan, while the people in Ginkgo were silently speculating who it was that killed Chun Wang and seized the Sacred Royal Medallion. Would he really hand over the medallion for Bai Qing? If that was the case, what relationship did this person have with Bai Qing? Nobody could guess. Very swiftly, experts from the Mystic Moon sect arrived from the Spirit Continent, experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan arrived from the Azure Continent, and experts from the Jiang clan arrived from the Wind Continent. Just as the Heavenly Fate rankings was about to be announced, many transcendent powers gathered in Ginkgo. This year's Heavenly Fate rankings was even more shocking compared to the one 3 years ago. There was a possibility that an all-out war between the transcendent powers would erupt. However, the reason why the previous Heavenly Fate rankings were so memorable was because of the demon-level geniuses that appeared, as well as the young man named Qin Wentian. In that case, who would be the one to instigate this year's Heavenly Fate rankings? The gazes of the people of Grand Xia were all focused on Ginkgo. However, nobody knew that before the Heavenly Fate rankings arrived, the experts of the Celestial Lake Palace in the Demon Mountain City had already departed in batches, stealthily making their way to the faraway Qing continent. Fairy Qingmei was there to personally oversee the departure. Not only that, in the endless forest and mountain range outside the Demon Mountain City, there was a large-scale movement of demonic beasts. The demonic beasts were all migrating towards the same direction, and all of them were extremely powerful. A storm was brewing in Jinzhou City. Who would pay attention to the movements in the Demon Mountain City, a city of demonic beasts in the wilderness? No one would know what this movement symbolized to the Grand Xia. This would be the beginning of a change in the history of Grand Xia, but who would know the truth? The Nine Mystical Palace was one of the transcendent powers in the Qing continent. Although the Nine Mystical Palace wasn't that eye-catching when compared to the 36 transcendent powers of Grand Xia, when placed in the context of the Qing continent, the Nine Mystical Palace wasn't that much weaker compared to the other transcendent powers. Not only that, if one were to head towards the south of Grand Xia, there were many small countries that were governed by the Nine Mystical Palace. However, in recent years, the Nine Mystical Palace wasn't too happy because the conflict between them and the Green Cloud Pavilion had escalated. As for the other two transcendent powers in Ginkgo, the Misty Peak and the Setting Sun Mountain, they naturally wouldn't help either side. They couldn't wait for the Nine Mystical Palace and the Green Cloud Pavilion to engage in a war, so that they could reap the benefits of the fishermen. Maybe only 2 out of the 4 transcendent powers would remain. Luckily, in the faraway Ginkgo, there was a piece of news that made everyone happy. Those from the Nine Mystical Palace who were heading to Ginkgo had a good relationship with the Great Solar Qin clan. The Great Solar Qin clan also had the intention of forming an alliance with them. As long as the Great Solar Qin clan helped them to attack the Qing continent, in addition to the strength of the Nine Mystical Palace, how could the Green Cloud Pavilion stand a chance against them? Thinking of this, the Nine Mystical Palace was extremely excited. Chapter 452. Suddenly, numerous figures moved about within Azure County City. However, because Azure County City was vast, all of these people were scattered within the stream of people, so they didn't seem so conspicuous. However, people that frequently moved about within the city would still notice that there seemed to be numerous unfamiliar guests that had arrived within Azure County City. All of them possessed extraordinary bearings, and it was even to the extent that many of them faintly emanated a strange aura. Hence, the Green Cloud Pavilion discovered some abnormalities. At this moment, in a certain building of the Green Cloud Pavilion, there was someone reporting this matter. Recently, nothing major happened in the Qing continent. After discovering this abnormality, the Green Cloud Pavilion sent people to investigate, and discovered that there were many experts with extraordinary auras, and the majority of them were at the Heavenly Dipper realm. Pavilion Lord, could this have something to do with our Nine Mystical Palace? At this moment, someone asked, causing the eyes of the Green Cloud Pavilion Lord to flicker. But at this moment, the Green Cloud Pavilion Lord abruptly inclined his head, staring at the azure clouds in the sky as he coldly stated, "Which friend has graced us with your presence? Why don't you show yourself?" In the sky, astral light cascaded downwards, and there were actually traces of constellations appearing. This scene caused the countenance of the Green Cloud Pavilion Lord to change drastically. He straightened his back as he stared at the sky. After that, above the clouds, a flawless silhouette slowly descended from the sky. Her alluring figure caused the hearts of the spectators to palpitate. However, on this person's face, there was an ice-cold and dazzling golden mask that exuded an eerie coldness. It was impossible to tell who this woman with such a figure was. "I wish to see that old man Green Cloud." That woman faintly spoke, her silhouette exuding a cold intent. The countenance of the Green Cloud Pavilion Lord sank, and at this moment, from the Green Cloud Pavilion, a voice drifted over. "Which friend has graced us with your presence? Come and meet me." That alluring figure slowly walked out, and in an instant, she appeared in the misty skies of the Green Cloud Pavilion. She saw an old man clad in simple robes standing at the entrance of the pavilion, staring at her. Those from the 9 mystical palace have already entered the Ginku continent, and they are extremely close to the great Solarchin clan. As for why they are doing this, I'm sure you are very clear about it. Right now there's an opportunity. My subordinates have already entered the Azure continent, and are currently heading towards the 9 mystical palace. Defeating them is easy, but annihilating them would be extremely difficult. If you join forces with me, we can kill that ascendant of the 9 mystical palace. The members of the Green Cloud Pavilion will assist us in killing those from the 9 mystical palace. The alluring woman slowly spoke. Her tone was extremely calm. Although Green Cloud Pavilion Lord Green Cloud didn't reveal any emotions, his heart was already trembling. How can I trust you? The Ginku continent is already in an uproar. The great Solarchin clan slaughtered the Mystic Moon sect. None of the transcendent powers of Grand Xia can guarantee that they will be able to remain unscathed. Do you really think that I came here to play a joke on you? If it wasn't for the fact that I have a grudge with the 9 mystical palace, what would you do if I joined forces with them to deal with the Green Cloud Pavilion? 9 mystical palace are. Since we 9 Qin, we 9 continent, and continent will be we. All right. Old man Green Cloud nodded his head as he commanded in a clear voice. Pass down my command. All heavenly dipper sovereigns and above are to head towards the 9 mystical palace. This voice directly resounded throughout the entire Green Cloud Pavilion, akin to a thunderclap, causing the members of the Green Cloud Pavilion to be dumbfounded. However, they all drew in a deep breath as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Their silhouettes flickered as they prepared to attack the 9 mystical palace. Was the battle finally going to start? As for the alluring maiden and old man Green Cloud, they directly departed. Since they were going to engage in a war of annihilation, the most crucial thing was to ensure that celestial phenomenon ascendants couldn't escape. If not, the threat they posed would be too great. At this moment, the 9 mystical palace had also discovered the abnormality in the Qing continent. Especially now, there was a formless energy gushing towards the direction of the 9 mystical palace. For such a major matter, the 9 mystical palace would naturally report it to their superiors. Inside the main hall, the 3 patriarchs sat on the main seat. As they listened to the words of the people below them, their expressions turned slightly solemn. Could it be someone from the Clear Cloud Pavilion? Did they investigate the situation at the Clear Cloud Pavilion? Reporting to Palace Master, we've already gone to investigate. We'll have news soon. Continue to monitor all movements. Palace Lord Xiao stood up, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. I don't believe that in this Qing continent, there's still someone who can shake my 9 mystical palace. Not even the Clear Cloud Pavilion. That's right. Let's endure for a few more days, and wait for the matters in Ginku to settle down before we think of a way to deal with the Green Cloud Pavilion. Palace Lord Yu slowly spoke. The 9 mystical palace had 3 palace lords in total. An instant later, outside the main hall, a person hurriedly rushed in, kneeling on the ground as he reported. Palace Lord, the Clear Cloud Pavilion has mobilized Heavenly Dipper sovereigns and above, and they are currently heading towards the 9 mystical palace. What? Palace Lord Zhao's countenance drastically changed as a cold light flickered in his eyes. The Clear Cloud Pavilion actually dared to declare war? Immediately mobilize our forces and prepare for battle. At the same time, report this to the Palace Lord. Since the Clear Cloud Pavilion wants to declare war, I'm sure that Old Man Green Cloud will be mobilized to annihilate our sect. The countenances of the 3 palace lords all turned heavy. At this moment, another person rushed in, his forehead dripping with perspiration. Palace Lord, those outsiders seem to be gathering. That person's voice trembled. Where are they gathering? Palace Lord Xiao coldly asked. Their direction is heading towards the outskirts of the 9 mystical palace. That person prostrated on the ground, his body trembling, causing the eyes of the 3 palace lords to gleam with sharpness. How many experts are there? All of them are at the Heavenly Dipper sovereign realm. As for their numbers, according to our initial estimations, There's a high possibility that their numbers exceed the number of Heavenly Dipper sovereigns in our 9 mystical palace. That person's voice reverberated throughout the great hall, causing the gazes of the 3 palace lords to freeze. Impossible. How can there be another transcendent power? Our 9 mystical palace has never offended any other transcendent powers before. Could it be that the experts from the Clear Cloud Pavilion have gathered together with the external reinforcements? No, the experts from the Clear Cloud Pavilion are still on their way, rushing towards the 9 mystical palace. Palace Lord, please make a decision quickly. That person's voice was trembling. Let's go out first. Palace Lord Xiao commanded. Momentarily, a group of experts sped out of the great hall, akin to a gust of wind. The moment they stepped into the great hall, they could feel a terrifying pressure bearing down on them. In the air, a towering might descended, enveloping the entire 9 mystical palace. Which friend has come to my 9 mystical palace? Please come out for a chat. In the air, the only celestial phenomenon ascendant of the 9 mystical palace floated there, staring at the skies. In the air, 2 silhouettes descended. One of them had an alluring figure, with an ice-cold mask on. As for the other, it was none other than the ascendant from the Clear Cloud Pavilion. With a wave of their palms, a constellation manifested, enveloping the entire 9 mystical palace. They came here to destroy the 9 mystical palace. There was naturally no need to say anything more. At the instant the constellation appeared, in all 8 directions of the 9 mystical palace, a boundless might gushed forth. The appearance of the constellation was the signal for them to make their move. Numerous experts floated in the air, instantly surrounding the 9 mystical palace. Those from the 9 mystical palace discovered that the experts in the air were all wearing ice-cold masks. Not a single one of them seemed to have any status. They didn't know where these experts came from, but why did they want to make a move against the 9 mystical palace? When has my 9 mystical palace ever offended you? Please tell me clearly. I will definitely pay you a visit in the future to beg for forgiveness. The ascendant from the 9 mystical palace stared at the alluring young woman as he spoke. Before this, he had already discovered that there were experts gathering here, but he didn't pay too much attention to them. But when he discovered that 2 ascendants had appeared, it was already too late. The 9 mystical palace was surrounded. Kill. A cold voice abruptly rang out, containing an intense killing intent. From afar, a raging wind gusted by. The experts from the Clear Cloud Pavilion had also arrived. Instantly, the countenances of the experts from the 9 mystical palace paled. The 3 palace lords were all in a daze. How could this be? Who was targeting their 9 mystical palace? The purpose of this battle was to destroy the 9 mystical palace. Who exactly was it that could mobilize such a terrifying force? The ascendant from the 9 mystical palace actually turned and fled. There was no chance of victory in this battle. He could only preserve his life and wait for his revenge in the future. Old Palace Lord. Seeing the faith in their hearts fleeing, the countenances of those from the 9 mystical palace turned ashen. They had no more will to fight. And at this moment, the experts from the 9 mystical palace slaughtered their way in, annihilating the 9 mystical palace. In the world of stellar martial cultivators, as long as there was a war between 2 transcendent powers, there was no way to leave any scourge behind. Mercy to the enemy was cruelty to oneself. The alluring young woman and old man Greencloud blocked the path of the 9 mystical palace lord. Their constellations rained down, and in an instant, that entire space was enveloped by a mystical phenomenon. The old Greencloud Pavilion lord blasted out with his palms, causing azure clouds to appear. Every single palm strike directly landed on the body of his opponent. Who was it that made a move against my 9 mystical palace? The old 9 mystical palace lord defended as he stared at the alluring young woman. He couldn't understand who would have such strength. The 9 mystical palace recklessly bullied the weak, seizing things that they shouldn't have. Now it's time for you to repay your debt. The alluring young woman coldly spoke. In this celestial phenomenon dimension, you won't be able to escape. As the sound of her voice faded, the alluring young woman and old man Greencloud acted once more. Their constellations flashed as the space trembled. Outside, a great battle had already erupted. the Green Cloud Pavilion and the masked powers slaughtered their way forward, sealing off all paths of escape. Even those who were far away could see the battle taking place. They stared over with dumbfounded expressions on their faces. Celestial phenomenon, a constellation actually appeared? Was this a war between sects? There were experts attacking the Nine Mystical Palace, wanting to annihilate it. Other than the Green Cloud Pavilion, who else could there be? Within the Nine Mystical Palace, within a gloomy prison, Dai's entire body was shackled. His body was riddled with scars, and at this moment he inclined his head, listening to the commotion outside as a look of bewilderment appeared on his face. It seemed like there were people attacking the Nine Mystical Palace. Within the Nine Mystical Palace, the violent shockwaves from the battle towered up into the clouds. High up in the air, an incomparably gigantic great rock with a length of 3,000 meters could be seen floating there. Its eyes were incomparably sharp as it stared downwards, as though it could penetrate through the layers of clouds, staring at the battle taking place there. The eyes of the great rock were ice-cold, exuding a chill that caused people to shiver in fear. There were no emotions in it. It was like the sovereign of the skies, peering down at the people below. It was here to collect its debt. Chapter 453. With Fairy Qingmei personally leading the troops, the combined forces of the Celestial Lake Palace and the Hidden Faction, in addition to the Green Cloud Pavilion, how terrifying would such a lineup be? The Nine Mystical Palace was only ranked at the bottom of the 36 transcendent powers. How could they withstand such an encirclement? In the blink of an eye, the majestic Nine Mystical Palace was dyed red with blood. The buildings were in shambles, and the earth cracked and cracked. The two transcendent powers had completely crushed the Nine Mystical Palace. Fairy Qingmei and Old Man Greencloud joined forces to suppress the ascendant of the Nine Mystical Palace, not allowing him to escape. Who's the one targeting my Nine Mystical Palace? At this moment, Palace Master Xiao was surrounded by three people. His face was pale and his eyes were bloodshot. Buzz. A gust of demonic wind swept down from the skies, bringing with it a terrifying demonic aura. Momentarily, the Nine Mystical Palace seemed to darken, as the entire sky was obscured. Those from the Nine Mystical Palace inclined their heads and stared at the skies, only to see a great rock descending from the clouds, descending lower and lower. The sharp eyes of the great rock swept over those from the Nine Mystical Palace. Wherever its gaze passed, who wouldn't tremble? The Great Peng, the descendant of the 8 demonic gods, the Great Peng in the clouds, the sovereign of the sky. He was Qin Wentian. Palace Lord Zhao's countenance abruptly turned pale. He naturally knew of the grudge between the Nine Mystical Palace and Qin Wentian. Back then in the Chu country, a descendant of the Xiao clan had provoked Qin Wentian and died in Chu. Because of this, the Nine Mystical Palace implicated the Emperor Star Academy and captured Dai. Who would have thought that they would discover the secret of the hidden Azure faction? Now that Qin Wentian had arrived with this force, he instantly seemed to understand something. He knew that today, he could only fight to the death. The Clear Cloud Pavilion actually joined hands with the Azure faction? Palace Preceptor Xiao bellowed in anger, his words causing the Clear Cloud Pavilion Lord to stiffen in the air. He too stared at the shadow of the great rock, his heart filled with terror. He didn't expect it to be Qin Wentian. Your Clear Cloud Pavilion probably doesn't know yet, but Qin Wentian is the Azure Emperor's successor. Palace Lord Xiao continued howling, only to see the great rock staring at him with an icy gaze. The Azure Emperor Palace shall be established, the Nine Mystical Palace shall be destroyed. As his voice fell, his body swooped down like a peerless sword, piercing towards Palace Master Xiao. Palace Master Zhao's entire body was bathed in lightning. He transformed into a raging lightning dragon, and swooped down towards the Great Peng in the sky. The Great Peng and the Thunder Dragon collided. The huge Great Peng rushed into the Thunder Dragon, and spat out an incomparably sharp king's sword towards Palace Master Xiao. Glacier. Palace Lord Zhao's voice was as cold as ice. His astral nova erupted forth as 9 lightning dragons manifested. Bang! Astral light flashed as the silhouette of the great rock vanished from sight. The sword pierced through the body of the lightning dragon, and pierced into Palace Lord Zhao's throat. That terrifying lightning also blasted into the body of the great rock, causing it to tremble violently. With a deafening explosion, the body of Palace Lord Xiao from the 9 mystical palace was reduced to dust, dissipating in the wind. The Azure Emperor Palace shall be established, the 9 mystical palace shall be destroyed. This voice reverberated in the air for a very long time. The destruction of a transcendent power was something that couldn't be concealed. Very soon, the people of Grand Xia would find out about it. Since that was the wish of the Azure Emperor and Fairy Qingmei, Qin Wentian would naturally do his best to help them accomplish this wish. Qin Wentian had already accepted their kindness. The number of experts from the 9 mystical palace grew fewer and fewer. Among the crowd, Luo Tianya stared dumbfoundedly at the great rock in the air. He didn't dare to believe what he was seeing. Was this the arrogant young man who participated in the Junlin banquet back then? Back then, Qin Wentian fought against his son Luo Qianqiu and defeated him. Luo Tianya wanted revenge, but due to the pressure from Ouyang Quangxing and the Green Cloud Pavilion, he could only endure silently. He had never forgotten to kill Qin Wentian, but as time flowed by, Qin Wentian's name actually shook Grand Xia. Now he personally led an army here to destroy his 9 mystical palace. Everything felt like a dream. Abruptly, a cold gaze swept over, causing Luo Tianya's heart to tremble violently. However, Qin Wentian merely glanced at him with disdain before shifting his gaze away. He couldn't even be bothered to look at a dying man like him. Bzz. A raging wind gusted as the silhouette of the great rock landed in front of an ancient palace. With a flap of its wings, it directly tore apart a prison. Dai inclined his head, staring at the gigantic silhouette of the great rock as his countenance turned sluggish. Kacha! The chains shattered. Yet Dai was still dumbfounded as he stared at the scene before him. The great rock opened its beak and stated, "Headmaster, Wentian has arrived with the experts from the Azure Emperor Palace." Wentian. Dai murmured in a low voice. After which, he turned his gaze onto the battle of the 9 mystical palace, as tears flowed down his face. Retracting his gaze, he turned to Qin Wentian as he stretched out his trembling hands, wanting to touch the face of the great rock. However, the great rock was simply too gigantic, and his palms only managed to touch a tiny part of its face. Tears involuntarily flowed out of Dai's eyes as he felt an incomparably complicated feeling in his heart. Qin Wentian, he had united the Azure faction, and led people to destroy the 9 mystical palace. However, Qin Wentian had actually transformed into a great rock. Headmaster, you should be happy instead. The gigantic eyes of the great rock flickered with a smile, causing Dai to nod his head unceasingly. Yes, we should be happy. Our Azure faction has been reinstated, and is now comparable to a transcendent power. Who would have thought that the remnants of the hidden faction, which had existed for thousands of years, would actually grow to such an extent? However, it's still dangerous for us to expose ourselves like this, Dai reminded. I know. That's why the members of the Azure Emperor Palace all wear masks, and no one knows their identities. They can split up into smaller groups and roam Grand Xia whenever they want. Qin Wentian spoke, his words causing Dai to nod his head in agreement. Most probably he was overthinking things. The current Qin Wentian was no longer the youth he was in the past. He would naturally consider all of these things. Qin Wentian brought Dai along as they floated in the air. Dai then asked, Wentian, after the destruction of the 9 mystical palace, what do you plan to do? I still have some matters to attend to. I need to make a trip to Ginkgo. Headmaster, if you return to Chu, please remember to send my regards. Qin Wentian spoke, his words causing Dai's countenance to falter for a moment before he nodded his head. During these years, he had no idea what had happened in the outside world. Since Qin Wentian needed to make a trip to Ginkgo, there must be something important. He didn't continue asking. Dai stared at the skies below. A sect that had existed for 1,000 years had been reduced to ashes in the span of a single night, becoming history. A few hours later, when the dust had settled, the other experts from the Green Cloud Pavilion also went up to the 9 mystical palace. Old Man Green Cloud had already guessed the identity of that alluring young maiden, and he couldn't help but feel fear in his heart. As for those below, there were a few experts from the Green Cloud Pavilion standing together, there was an aged man and two beautiful maidens. They all inclined their heads, staring at Qin Wentian, who was floating in the air. At this moment, the great rock lowered its head, staring in their direction as a smile appeared on its face. "Senior, how have you been since we last met?" Qin Wentian asked with a smile. So it turned out that the aged man was none other than the ancient emperor of Chu country, Gong Yanghong. Gong Yang had a bitter smile on his face as he shook his head. "I'm fine. During these years, I've often heard of your name, and I've always praised my judgment for being able to see through people. But never would I have thought that you would transform into a great rock. But seeing that you are still alive, my heart is truly comforted." Currently, there were many in Grand Xia who believed that Qin Wentian had already perished. Transforming into a great rock and soaring through the skies, isn't that a joyous thing? Sadly, I still have important matters to attend to, and won't be able to accompany Senior any longer. Don't worry about it, go ahead. Gong Yanghong nodded. "Emichem," Qin Wentian replied, as he nodded his head to the maiden beside him as well as Qianmingyu, causing Qianmingyu's heart to tremble. Would that arrogant young man really not be able to return? "Let's go," Qin Wentian spat out as he soared up into the skies. Instantly, those masked experts also followed suit, leaving behind a thick brushstroke in the Qin continent. The destruction of the 9 mystical palace was like a bolt from the blue, causing the major powers in the Qin continent to be shocked speechless. After which, they also learned that the main force responsible for the destruction of the 9 mystical palace was none other than Qin Wentian, who had ascended to the Pill Emperor Hall by himself. But now he was no longer alone, he was leading the Azure faction. Moon Continent Pill Emperor Hall. The demon sword was still there. Currently, the Pill Emperor Hall was keeping a low profile because of the incident with Qin Wentian in the past. They knew that there was a terrifying power behind Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were all standing at the top of the 99 steps, as though they were waiting for something. Not long after, a group of silhouettes could be seen floating in the air. The person in the lead was a young man, his countenance sharp and filled with a lofty aura. He stared at the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. "Junyu, you've broken through to celestial phenomenon?" The Pill Emperor stared at the young man, his countenance filled with excitement. The young man nodded. "Master, disciple didn't let down the sacred royal medallion. Now I've returned." Good. The Pill Emperor smiled. "You should already know about the matter with the Pill Emperor Hall. Right now, the Pill Emperor Hall is truly pitiful." A cold light flickered in the eyes of the young man. After which, he walked towards the demon sword, his countenance cold. Abruptly, a constellation appeared in the air. His silhouette flickered as he placed his palms on the demon sword, wanting to pull it out. However, the demon sword trembled unceasingly as it hummed, refusing to be pulled out. "You don't know what's good for you." The young man coldly snorted. The constellation in the sky landed on him as a resplendent might cascaded downwards. The clouds in the 8 directions shuddered as astral light illuminated the skies. A terrifying sealing energy bore down on the demon sword, causing it to tremble even more violently. A terrifying beam of light erupted forth from the demon sword as a terrifying phenomenon manifested in the air. Dragons and phoenixes howled in grief as a great rock slammed into the skies. The young man pointed his finger at the air as his constellation descended, enveloping the demon sword. Gradually, the phenomenon grew weaker as the demon sword returned to its former tranquility. The silhouette of the young man flickered as he landed on the ground. "This sword is extraordinary." Those from the Pill Emperor Hall nodded in agreement. They naturally knew that this demon sword was extraordinary. And just as the young man spoke, a sigh drifted out from the demon sword. This sigh shook the heavens and earth. Yet the people from the Pill Emperor Hall didn't seem to hear it at all. Far away in the air above the Qin continent, the gigantic body of the great rock abruptly shuddered. In his mind, a sigh that seemed to originate from the primordial era rang out. "Who is it?" The eyes of the great rock gleamed with sharpness. Who was it that could directly let out a sigh that rang out in his mind? Connecting with the demonic divinities of the 8 directions, transforming into an ancient demon. This is the demonic divinity sacrificial art. A voice drifted out, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble even more intensely. Who are you? Qin Wentian asked in his heart. Who am I? I don't know either. I only know that I'm a great rock in the clouds. I only hate that the heavens are too low. An ancient voice drifted over, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble even more violently. The great rock in the clouds hated that the heavens were too low. It was the demon sword. The demon sword, despite being separated by tens of thousands of miles, transmitted its voice into his mind. The demonic divinity sacrificial art can be reversed. An ancient voice drifted over once more, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble violently. The demonic divinity sacrificial art could be reversed. Chapter 454. There seemed to be an ancient will within the demon sword. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation was a secret art that couldn't be reversed. However, the voice transmission from the demon sword stated that the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation could be reversed. Where did this great Peng that hated the sky for being too low come from? Could it be that the legend of the sword reverence city was true? This sword had descended from the heavens and descended into the sword reverence city, splitting the earth apart and forming the precipice. The sword was stuck in the ground of the cliff. It hated the sky for being too low and refused to fly, often wailing in sorrow. How? Qin Wentian asked. You used your bloodline to awaken me. Only then was I able to transmit my voice to you. Fate arose because of you. Awaken me and I bestow upon you an immortal art to reverse the demonic divinity sacrificial rite. The ancient voice transmitted into Qin Wentian's mind. The ancient will connects to the demonic divinities of the 8 directions, using your body as a sacrifice to transform into a demon. This is the demonic art of sacrifice. Since you are able to use your body as a sacrifice, it means that you are able to connect to the ancient will. You must have an extraordinary background. Since that's the case, you can also connect to the stars with your ancient will, ignite the power of the demonic divinity, and reach the stars with your will, connecting to the heavens and earth. I shall bestow upon you an immortal art, the immortal vanquishing swordplay. However, this immortal art, even if you exhaust the power of the demonic divinity in your body, it still won't be enough. I'm afraid that it will borrow the power of your bloodline, absorb all the essence qi in your body, and empty your yuanfu. When the immortal vanquishing swordplay is unleashed, the demonic divinity sacrificial art will be used to counter it. But under this sword, I'm afraid that your body will be emptied and you will suffer great injuries. Even if your bloodline is strong, you won't be able to recover without a year's time. The voice drifted over, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble violently. This technique was several times more terrifying compared to when he used the demon sword. He wasn't able to endure such a burden. Qin Wentian knew very well that the reason why he could transform into a great rock was because he borrowed external energy. His will was connected to the demonic divinities of the 8 directions, borrowing the astral energy, demonic qi of heaven and earth, as well as the power of the 8 demonic divinities. Only then could he transform into a great rock. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation was a transformation of the demonic divinity transformation art. The technique taught to him by demon sword was to completely incinerate all the external energy. At the same time, he would also suffer some damage to his body before he could recover. This was an immortal art, similar to the great Nirvana immortal art. It contained towering might, and was even more dangerous compared to him using the demon sword. This technique was known as the immortal vanquishing swordplay. It was extremely domineering. Are you willing to cultivate? The ancient voice rang out once more. The eyes of the great rock flickered with resolution. Right now, he didn't only have the body of a great rock. Through the great Nirvana immortal art, he had another body. Even if the danger was extremely great, he could endure it. In addition, his 2 bodies were connected and could be one. Even if one body was injured and needed time to recover, the other body could cultivate outside. I'm willing to cultivate. Qin Wentian's voice was resolute without any hesitation. If he could succeed in cultivating this art, the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation could be controlled or controlled. Even if the price was great, he had 2 bodies. What did he have to fear? Good. But remember, if you haven't reverted back to your original self, you must remember not to execute the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Your body doesn't have the power of the demonic divinities to burn. You won't be able to endure it, and you will die for sure. Qin Wentian made a mental note that he could only use this sword technique when he was in the form of a great rock. Otherwise, he would definitely die. But of course, in the future, when his strength reached a certain level, he would be able to do the same. At this moment, an ancient will was transmitted into his sea of consciousness. The great rock closed his eyes, allowing his body to soar freely in the air. His consciousness sank into the ancient will. After a long time, he absorbed the will and started to comprehend it. The immortal vanquishing swordplay was only the first stance, the simplest stance. The first stance wasn't difficult, it was the foundation of the immortal vanquishing swordplay. But even so, it was still an immortal art. What was difficult was that he didn't have enough strength to activate it. He couldn't even endure the first stance. Just like what the great rock had said, the first stance was sufficient to exhaust all the demonic divinities in his body, ignite his demonic energy, and drain his yuanfu. Senior, are you a great rock in sword form, or are you a sword spirit? Qin Wentian mused. Where did the demon sword come from? Who was it? I have no idea. The great rock sighed before returning to silence. This caused Qin Wentian to fall silent as well. As he continued on his way, the ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings was drawing near. He had to rush to Ginkgo before it started. Several days later, in the base camp of the Ouyang aristocrat clan in Ginkgo. Currently, the number of experts here were as many as the clouds. Even if the great Solarchin clan attacked, they wouldn't be able to do anything to them. There was no other reason than the fact that the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Jiang clan and Mystic Moon sect were all gathered here. Who would be able to do anything to these 3 transcendent powers? At this moment, the Ouyang ancestor, Jiang ancestor and sect leader of the Mystic Moon sect were all seated in the main seats. Below them, experts were also as common as the clouds. A few days ago, the experts from the Mystic Moon sect who were stationed in Ginkgo were killed by the great Solarchin clan. This matter not only shocked Ginkgo, it shocked the entire Grand Xia. The significance of this battle was extraordinary. It indicated that the war between the transcendent powers was unstoppable. But now, although the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan had arrived, whether or not they would participate was still a matter of discussion. After all, they had to consider the benefits of their own clans first. It was impossible for them to participate just because of a genius of the younger generation, Ouyang Guangxing's conflict with the great Solarchin clan, and his friendship with Bai Qing. In a war between sects, who would dare to be careless? The slightest carelessness could lead to the decline of the transcendent powers. But to the Mystic Moon sect, they couldn't tolerate such a grudge. Hence, they hoped to convince the 2 aristocrat clans to form an alliance. If it was just a simple alliance, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan would naturally be more than happy to do so. Only then would they be able to stand firm in this chaotic Grand Xia. But a war wasn't something that could be resolved with just a few words. Ancestor, if the great Solarchin clan has the chance, they would definitely not spare our Ouyang aristocrat clan. At this moment, Ouyang Guangxing spoke. The ancestor of the Ouyang aristocrat clan glanced at him as he replied, I naturally understand. If my Ouyang aristocrat clan had the ability, we would also do the same thing. But now, everyone knows that it's impossible to annihilate the other party. Initiating a war between sects would only weaken the strength of both parties, allowing the other transcendent powers to reap the benefits. Not only that, if the Mystic Moon sect, Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan join forces, wouldn't the great Solarchin clan, Hua clan, Wang clan and 9 mystical palace join forces as well? One must know that if they join forces, their strength would definitely be stronger than ours. Upon hearing these words, the crowd fell silent. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect was a middle-aged woman. Her countenance didn't change even after hearing the words of the Ouyang ancestor. At her level of cultivation, her heart was as calm as still water. She knew that the Ouyang aristocrat clan wasn't willing to initiate a war between sections. She couldn't blame the Ouyang aristocrat clan for anything. If things didn't work out, her mystic moon sect could only endure this grudge. At this moment, there was someone standing in the distance. One of the Ouyang aristocrat clan's members turned his gaze over as he asked, "What's the matter?" "A person wishes to seek an audience with you." That person spoke, causing the brows of the crowd to furrow as they replied, "No." That person said that he is Qin Wentian. As the sound of that person's voice faded, the eyes of the crowd flickered with sharpness. Back then, Qin Wentian had barged into the Pill Emperor Hall alone. If he was still alive, it would mean that there was an extremely powerful power behind Qin Wentian that had rescued him from the Pill Emperor Hall. The eyes of Ouyang Quangxing, Fan Lu and the rest all gleamed with sharpness as they stood up. An instant later, Qin Wentian arrived. Upon seeing his appearance, the crowd couldn't help but frown as a surge of pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. "My name is Ditian. Qin Wentian ordered me to come to the Ginkgo continent." Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Not long later, the Great Rock and Ditian would appear together. He naturally couldn't reveal his identity. "How can I trust you?" Ouyang Quangxing coldly replied. Qin Wentian stepped out as his silhouette appeared in another direction. Lifting his palms, a sword manifested as he slashed down from the heavens. Stellar transposition, heavenly swordplay, as well as the blood curse imprint. "You know so many of the ultimate arts of Grand Xia." Ouyang Quangxing's eyes gleamed with sharpness. He already believed that Ditian was Qin Wentian's subordinate. "Where is Qin Wentian now? Is he doing well?" Chu Meng asked. "A few days ago, he destroyed the 9 mystical palace. Currently he is leading his troops to Ginkgo. On the day of the ranking battle, Qin Wentian will arrive." Ditian slowly spoke, his words causing the eyes of the crowd to narrow. "The 9 mystical palace was destroyed by Qin Wentian? Based on what?" the Ouyang ancestor asked. "And what is your identity?" "Right now, Qin Wentian is the ruler of a major power. I am Ditian, and I serve Qin Wentian as my young lord. If you guys still don't believe me, let me show you another innate technique." Qin Wentian stretched out his palms as the arms of a Kirin appeared. The eyes of Fan Lu and the rest gleamed with sharpness. This was the Fiend transformation art. With so many innate techniques, there was no doubt about it. Seems like Qin Wentian was really still alive. "I knew it. That fellow wouldn't die so easily." Fan Lu grinned. Ouyang Quangxing and Chu Meng also had expressions of excitement on their faces. Qin Wentian was still alive. "Did you come here because of Qin Wentian?" the Ouyang ancestor asked. His thoughts were also stirred. If Qin Wentian wasn't dead, then the power behind him. Was this the reason why the Pill Emperor Hall was so silent? That's right, the battle for the heavenly fate is a gathering of experts. Qin Wentian will lead a group of experts here to wage war against the Great Solar Qin clan. At that time, I hope that all of you can join forces and fight against the Great Solar Qin clan. A war between sects is no small matter, the Ouyang ancestor stated. Back then, Qin Wentian once bestowed the 9 ultimate arts to young Master Ouyang. Now he is willing to share the 9 ultimate arts with the Jiang clan and the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Is this worth it? Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at the crowd in front of him. The 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, not just one of them. Back then, although Ouyang Quangxing had cultivated a few of the 9 ultimate arts, they were still imparted to him by Qin Wentian due to their brotherly relationship. His clan members wanted him to hand over the 9 ultimate arts, yet he didn't agree. And because of this, the elders of his clan had a mixture of love and hate for him. But on the surface, they still doted on him, hoping that one day, Ouyang Quangxing would change his mind and hand over the 9 ultimate arts to the entire clan. And now, Qin Wentian actually took the initiative to hand over the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. The temptation was too great. If they could obtain the 9 ultimate arts and cultivate them for a period of time, their Ouyang aristocrat clan would definitely be extremely powerful. If the Hua clan, Wang clan, and 9 mystical palace join in, we have no chance of victory at all. The Ouyang ancestor still had a trace of hesitation in his heart. You are wrong, the 9 mystical palace has already been destroyed. As long as you all publicly announce that this alliance only targets the Great Solar Qin clan, would the Hua clan and Wang clan really be willing to engage in a war for the sake of the Great Solar Qin clan? The three transcendent powers, in addition to the power that destroyed the 9 mystical palace, if Senior is in control of the Hua clan, would you act for the Great Solar Qin clan? Or would you just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight? The Great Solar Qin clan has 3 ascendants. The strongest among them is stronger than any one of us. We have no way to contend against him alone. The Ouyang ancestor spoke again. That ancestor-ranked character was the source of the Great Solar Qin clan's confidence. They dared to act against the Mystic Moon sect because of their immense confidence. 3 ascendants, although one of them had just broken through to the celestial phenomenon realm, his combat prowess was already extremely high after cultivating the Great Solar Universe art. In addition to the other 2 ascendants, their combat prowess would definitely be terrifying. Everyone with the 3 transcendent powers, in addition to the ascendant that will be accompanying Qin Wentian, even if we cannot destroy the Great Solar Qin clan, there would definitely be no problem for us to suppress the 3 ascendants. And even if we fail to destroy the Great Solar Qin clan in this war, we would at least be able to cause their vitality to be greatly damaged. Within tens of years, they wouldn't dare to wage war against the Great Solar Qin clan. And at that time, with the 9 ultimate arts in our hands, we would be able to form a stable alliance. Would you really fear the Great Solar Qin clan? Senior, don't you think you are too lacking in courage? Qin Wentian's voice was filled with power, causing the eyes of the Ouyang ancestor to narrow. If this was the case, it was worth the risk. Chapter 455. Qin Wentian had no other choice but to invite the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan to participate in this war. Right now, although the Hidden Azure faction was united, they only had a single ascendant, Fairy Qingmei. Their strength was far from sufficient to contend against the Great Solar Qin clan and the other transcendent powers. If not, why would Fairy Qingmei wait for so many years? Hence, Qin Wentian needed the strength of an alliance to deal a fatal blow to the Great Solar Qin clan, causing them to be unable to recover. However, Qin Wentian had also asked Fairy Qingmei about some secrets. Back then, the death of the Azure Emperor had implicated many people, including the Hua clan and Wang clan. If Fairy Qingmei appeared, there was a high possibility that the Ouyang aristocrat clan would act. However, Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't allow the Ouyang aristocrat clan to fall into danger. He had already made preparations for this. Not only that, the Ouyang aristocrat clan wouldn't be part of the alliance. They only appeared because they wanted to deal with the Great Solar Qin clan. As for the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, it was a form of compensation to the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan. He also hoped that these 2 powers would be able to rise up and restrain the lofty Qin, Hua, and Wang clans. This time around, Ginkgo could be said to be a truly grand event. Compared to the ranking battle 3 years ago, the number of experts gathered here today was even greater, especially for the major powers like the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Hua clan. Even celestial phenomenon ascendants came to Ginkgo. One could very well imagine how terrifying the storm would be. The relationship between the Qin clan, Hua clan, and Wang clan was extremely close. It was as though they were vaguely opposing each other. Xiao Han and the rest of the Qin clan were also mixed in among them. Just when they were feeling proud of their success, a bolt of lightning struck down from a clear sky, causing the hearts of Xiao Han and the rest of the Qin clan to tremble. Back then, when he barged into the Pill Emperor Hall alone, the Qin Wentian who had transformed into a great rock didn't die. Right now, he was still in the form of a great rock and was now in control of the Azure faction. Not long ago, he joined forces with the Green Cloud Pavilion to uproot the 9 mystical palace. As this news circulated out, the airspace above Ginkgo seemed to be shrouded by a layer of dark clouds. The various transcendent powers suddenly recalled the low profile of the Pill Emperor Hall. Back then when Qin Wentian walked out of the Pill Emperor Hall alive, what exactly happened in the Pill Emperor Hall? The Ouyang aristocrat clan was also stunned by this news. The Azure faction, Qin Wentian actually obtained the Azure faction. If this was the case, wouldn't things be even worse? However, just as he was wavering, another piece of news circulated to the Ginku continent. The Hua clan of the Moon continent was attacked by the Azure faction and suffered heavy losses. Luckily, the Hua clan still had a celestial phenomenon ascendant protecting them. But even so, they still weren't able to fight against Fairy Qingmei and were heavily injured. When the news reached Ginku, all the cultivators of the Hua clan had already left Ginku and rushed back to their clan. Now Qin Wentian was taking revenge. Instantly, the hearts of the major forces trembled. And after that, the news of the Wang clan being attacked in the war continent caused everyone to be speechless. The fact that Qin Wentian was still alive caused many to be wary of him when he walked out of the Pill Emperor Hall. But now, Qin Wentian represented the Azure faction and started the path of revenge. Undoubtedly, he had offended many transcendent powers, and even if they wanted to make peace, it was already impossible. The only option left was to fight. But since Qin Wentian's identity was exposed, he had no intentions of establishing his own sect. If he did so, he would undoubtedly be ganged up on. The members of the hidden Azure faction all wore masks, and many of them cultivated the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Nobody knew who was hiding behind the masks. Amidst all the shocking news, the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings finally commenced in the Venerate Heavens sect. Within the Venerate Heavens sect, there was a gigantic training ground with a total of 36 spectator stands in 8 directions. Behind the spectator stands were the countless spectators. This time around, the Heavenly Fate rankings wouldn't be held in Grand Xia, nor would there be training grounds like the River of Life and Death, the Vermilion Bird Formation, etc. In that case, the rankings would be determined by the victor. Each of the 36 transcendent powers took out a treasure and bestowed it to the 36 rankers. But now one of the 36 transcendent powers had been reduced. There were only a few people seated in the spectator stands belonging to the 9 mystical palace, and all of them felt extremely awkward. Now that their sects had been destroyed, and they had also offended an enemy like Qin Wentian, they could only rely on the other transcendent powers to survive. Other than that, there were only a few experts from the Hua clan and Wang clan. They were all worried that Qin Wentian would launch another sneak attack, hence they could only stay in their respective clans. In the spectator stands, the spectators were all absent-minded as they stared at the battles between the geniuses on the training ground. Compared to the chaotic situation in Grand Xia, the ranking battle didn't seem as important anymore. After all, this was a competition between the younger generation. But now, the situation in Grand Xia had already changed. Nobody knew if they would be able to see the rise of the younger generation. Those from the great Solar Qin clan brought Bai Qing over. They didn't do anything to Bai Qing, but instead, they kept a close watch on her. Today, if the sacred royal medallion didn't appear, they would kill Bai Qing on the spot. Old man Tianji sat in the host's seat, his gaze on the increasingly intense battles taking place on the training ground. Nodding his head, he glanced at one of the young men and smiled. This young man isn't bad. His swordsmanship is truly extraordinary. Those from the Venerate Heavens sect smiled as they nodded. Old man Tianji raised his gaze and looked at the surrounding viewing gallery. His eyes narrowed slightly as he sensed that the people from the various powers seemed to have something on their minds, as though they all had ulterior motives. Lightly shaking his head, old man Tianji naturally understood the thoughts of these people. In the chaotic situation in Grand Xia, the transcendent powers could rise to the next level, or they could also fall. How could their thoughts still be on the ranking battle? Demon Star has truly thrown Grand Xia into chaos. Old man Tianji's eyes gleamed with sharpness. The prophecy he had foreseen in the past was slowly becoming a reality. Qin Wentian, in the short span of a few years, had already displayed the strength to contend against Grand Xia. If another 10 years were to pass, what would the situation be like? 10 years, in the context of the vast history of Grand Xia, was simply too short. The battles on the Heavenly Fate rankings grew more and more intense. The Ouyang aristocrat clan, Jiang clan and Mystic Moon sect were all gathered together in the spectator stands. Their hearts were all filled with excitement, occasionally flashing with sharpness, yet they were all waiting quietly. Finally, after a few days of battles, the number of participants on the Heavenly Fate rankings grew more and more powerful. Right now, Only 2 people remained. Their madness caused the spectators to sigh in admiration at how powerful these 2 were. In the future, they would definitely be able to accomplish great things. These 2 were clad in robes of black and white respectively. The black-robed young man was an expert from the Shi clan. In the previous ranking battle, Shi Potion's performance was extremely miserable. But this time around, the Shi clan could finally hold their heads high and obtain the position of the top ranker. As for the second ranker, it was actually an expert from the Thousand Ju Alliance. Old Man Tianji inscribed the Heavenly Fate rankings, as the top 36 names floated in the air. The new rankings were born. It was as though everything had come to an end. However, the spectators all understood that the matters of today weren't over yet. Congratulations, Brother Shi, Nephew Shi's talent is extraordinary. In the future he will definitely have great accomplishments. An expert from the Chun clan glanced at those from the Shi clan as he smiled. The leader of the Shi clan nodded his head. Howard still needs more tempering. He's still far from being the top ranker of the previous ranking battle. The eyes of that expert from the Chun clan flashed with a cold light when he thought of Qin Wentian. After which he indifferently stated, "Now that so many experts have gathered here, the ranking battle has already concluded, but the sacred royal medallion has yet to appear. In that case, this beautiful and talented young lady can only endure some humiliation." As the sound of his voice faded, he stood up and stared at Bai Qing. "The Chun clan lost the sacred royal medallion. Yet you want to vent your anger on a disciple of my Mystic Moon sect? How laughable." The leader of the Mystic Moon sect personally spoke. Her eyes gleamed with a terrifying coldness as she stared at the Chun clan. "Maybe the sacred royal medallion is in the hands of your Mystic Moon sect?" The expert from the Chun clan coldly spoke, his eyes similarly gleaming with sharpness. He stared at the 3 major powers as he coldly laughed in his heart. Did the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan really have the guts to ally with the Mystic Moon sect to start a war? For this matter, the Chun clan has gone too far. The clan leader of the Ouyang clan calmly spoke, his words causing the countenances of the crowd to stiffen. The words of the clan leader of the Ouyang clan undoubtedly represented his standpoint. A storm was about to descend. The expert from the Chun clan stared at the direction of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. He was still as carefree as ever. "Old friends from the Pill Emperor Hall, we are here to pay a visit to Brother Tianji." At this moment a voice drifted over from afar. Momentarily, the countenances of the crowd stiffened as they inclined their heads, only to see a group of silhouettes walking over. At the very front, there were 3 experts with unfathomable auras. "That's the Pill Emperor and that old antique ranked celestial phenomenon ascendant. Has the Pill Emperor Hall returned to Grand Xia?" Upon seeing this scene, the countenances of the crowd were filled with shock. As for the young man walking shoulder to shoulder with the Pill Emperor, who was he exactly? To think that he actually had such an identity. Old Man Tianji stared at the 3 newcomers as a strange light flashed in his eyes. The countenances of the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan were all extremely unsightly to behold. Why did the Pill Emperor Hall appear? Noble nephew Junyu has returned. Only to see an old man clad in luxurious long robes standing up from the crowd of the Chun clan. This man exuded an imposing aura. He was none other than the old ancestor of the Chun clan. Right now the entire Chun clan was under his control. And now, upon seeing the Pill Emperor and the others appearing, the first person he greeted was actually the young man from the Pill Emperor Hall. This caused countless people to be stunned. Junyu, it seemed like it was him. Over 30 years ago, the personal disciple of the Pill Emperor, Junyu, as well as his daughter, Luohe, were the twin geniuses of the Pill Emperor Hall. Junyu was proficient in the martial Dao while Luohe was proficient in alchemy. This Junyu was once the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, but after he broke through to Heavenly Dipper, his name shook the entire Grand Xia and he vanished from Grand Xia. And now this young man had returned. Uncle Chun. Junyu nodded his head, treating him like an equal. The ascendant from the Chun clan didn't mind at all. He smiled and nodded. "I've already heard that noble nephew Junyu has stepped into the celestial phenomenon realm and had great accomplishments in the outside world. Now that you've returned, How can the Pill Emperor Hall not rise to power? Junyu nodded his head. After which, they moved to the spectator stands of the Pill Emperor Hall. Momentarily, a few disciples of the Pill Emperor Hall had expressions of respect on their faces. The Pill Emperor and the other two sat together. Junyu flicked his sleeves as he swept his gaze over the crowd, exuding an aura of supremacy. Old man Tianji stared at Junyu as he silently mused in his heart. As expected of someone who returned from tempering himself in the outside world, Junyu from the Pill Emperor Hall should be one of the few with the highest achievements in the past few hundred years. He wasn't simply a celestial phenomenon ascendant. It was said that he had already obtained an extraordinary status in the outside world. In Grand Xia, his status was so high that he could even suppress others to death. Chapter 456. The three ascendants of the Pill Emperor Hall sat together. Among them, Junyu sat in the center, not wanting to pass on his responsibilities. Although Junyu was once a disciple of the Pill Emperor Hall, his current status was extraordinary. Even in the entire Pill Emperor Hall, his status couldn't be compared to him. Earlier, the Pill Emperor intentionally gave the center seat to Junyu. His purpose was precisely to show off Junyu's status. Over a year ago, that battle in the Pill Emperor Hall almost caused the entire Pill Emperor Hall to be annihilated. That powerful celestial phenomenon ascendant, the words young master, caused the Pill Emperor's guts to shatter. From then on, the Pill Emperor Hall retreated from Grand Xia, no longer contending for supremacy in the outside world. In addition to the matter of withered bones snatching the life of one of their disciples, the reputation of the Pill Emperor Hall was also tarnished. For a period of time, the Pill Emperor Hall fell into an absolute trough. At this moment, a piece of news from the outside world caused the Pill Emperor to be incomparably excited. His disciple, the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings over 30 years ago, the one with the highest talent among his disciples, Junyu, wanted to return to take a look. Not only that, Junyu had already officially entered the Royal Sacred Sect, and was accepted as a disciple by an elder of the Royal Sacred Sect. Not only that, this elder was once a king of Grand Shang, and had climbed up the ranks step by step, obtaining the glorious status of an elder in the Royal Sacred Sect. Hence, leaving aside Grand Xia, even in Grand Shang, Junyu could directly enter the royal palace and converse with the Emperor of Grand Shang. How exalted was this status? Ordinary people in Grand Xia might not be clear, but as the Pill Emperor himself, he was very clear that the shadows of Grand Shang were behind the destruction of Grand Xia back then. Grand Shang was as powerful as Grand Xia before it was destroyed, or maybe even stronger. They had many celestial phenomenon ascendants. Before this, the Sea clan that was in charge of the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia was actually one of the strongest of the 9 grand clans. They had never vanished in the long river of history. They had gone to the Grand Shang Empire, and were now even more powerful than before. Even the transcendent powers of Grand Xia didn't dare to antagonize them. One could very well imagine how high Junyu's status was now. Hence, when the Pill Emperor Hall learned of this, they were extremely excited. So what if Qin Wentian was the young master of a transcendent power? In this world, which transcendent power would dare to compare to the Royal Sacred Sect? The Royal Sacred Sect was the true hegemon. It was rumored that they had existences above celestial phenomenon. The Royal Sacred Sect governed boundless territories. They were the absolute rulers. Within their territory, there were countless powerful sects, and there were also the 3 empires that were subordinate to them. Great Xia was just one of the 3 great empires. The Royal Sacred Sect issued the Sacred Royal Medallion, and those who possessed the medallion would be able to enjoy many special privileges. They were all external disciples of the Royal Sacred Sect, and could head to the Royal Sacred Sect to fight for the chance to join them. This was the reason why the Chen clan viewed the Sacred Royal Medallions with such importance. Every single Sacred Royal Medallion represented a ray of hope to them. They would only bestow upon the most talented disciples in their clan, allowing them to temper themselves in the outside world. They hoped that one day, they would be able to join the Royal Sacred Sect and occupy a high position. At that time, it wouldn't be impossible for them to unify Grand Xia. Junyu was once an outstanding disciple of the Pill Emperor Hall. He went out with the sacred royal medallion and now, after 30+ years, he returned with glory. The gazes of the crowd shifted onto the Pill Emperor Hall, silently speculating on Junyu's current strength. At this moment, Junyu swept his gaze over to the experts from the major powers as he emotionlessly spoke. To think that there are so many elders here today. I, Junyu, hereby greet all of you. Noble nephew Junyu is too polite. An expert from the Chun clan laughed as he glanced in the direction of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, his lips curling up in a cold smile. Initially, he thought that the Ouyang aristocrat clan wouldn't have the courage to start a war. However, the attitudes of the other major powers were ambiguous, and in addition to the fact that the Hua and Wang clan were surrounded, those who had a grudge against the Azure faction were all forced to retreat. Did the Ouyang aristocrat clan really think that their Chun clan couldn't tell that they were targeting them? Sadly, these people had already planned this out. Leaving aside the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the other major powers, even if Qin Wentian led the experts from the Azure Emperor Palace here today, how big of a wave would they be able to create? Just the Chun clan and Pill Emperor Hall alone had a total of 6 ascendants. Not only that, this wasn't even considering Junyu's status. Would the Ouyang aristocrat clan even dare to act? I heard that noble nephew Junyu has already entered the royal sacred sect and became the personal disciple of an elder. Brother Pill King, congratulations on having such an outstanding disciple. An expert from the Chun clan clasped his hands to the Pill King, causing a look of satisfaction to appear on the Pill King's face. The experts from the various transcendent powers all felt their hearts pounding violently when they heard this. Ordinary people might not know of the royal sacred sect because they had never heard of it before. But as the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, how could they not have heard of the royal sacred sect? That was a true hegemon. The transcendent powers of Grand Xia were as insignificant as ants in front of the royal sacred sect. As long as the royal sacred sect spoke, it would be able to cause the destruction of a transcendent power. The elder-level characters of the royal sacred sect were all existences that could reach the heavens. They could easily destroy them. Junyu had become the personal disciple of such a character. How could the Pill King not be proud? The countenance of the ancestor from the Ouyang aristocrat clan instantly changed, becoming incomparably unsightly to behold. Before this, Di Tian had already done what he promised. Qin Wentian had indeed lured the experts from the Wang and Hua clan away. Not only that, he had already handed over 2 ultimate arts to them, allowing them to cultivate them in preparation for war. They were preparing to launch an attack on the Great Solar Qin clan today. But at this moment, Junyu's appearance had completely broken the balance. Especially Junyu's identity, it caused him to feel a deep sense of trepidation. Qin Wentian and the Pill Emperor Hall had a blood feud that was as deep as the seas. If they joined forces with Qin Wentian to deal with the Great Solar Qin clan, one could very well imagine the attitude of the Pill Emperor Hall and Junyu. The heart of the Ouyang ancestor was clearly wavering. The countenance of the Mystic Moon Hall mistress was extremely unsightly to behold. She naturally could feel the strange atmosphere. The situation was completely different from what they had expected. Noble nephew Junyu is currently cultivating in the sacred sect. Why are you so free to come back now? At this moment, old man Tianji, who was seated on the main seat, smiled as he turned his gaze over to Junyu. Junyu's countenance shifted to the direction of old man Tianji as he indifferently replied, I heard that there's a storm brewing in Grand Xia. My master is the controller of the Pill Emperor Hall, yet there's actually someone who dares to act against the Pill Emperor Hall. How brazen to the extreme. The reason I came here today is because I hope that if you all meet this person in the future, you can help my Pill Emperor Hall to capture him. I will personally interrogate him and bring him away. Junyu had already heard the Pill Emperor's words. There was a supreme expert behind Qin Wentian. He naturally wouldn't kill Qin Wentian. Although he didn't care, the Pill Emperor Hall wouldn't be able to escape. If Qin Wentian appeared, he would definitely capture this person alive and force him to reveal his secrets, as well as the identity of his backer. That's only natural. The expert from the Chun clan agreed. After which, he turned his gaze onto Bai Qing as he coldly stated, "This woman is a good friend of Qin Wentian." Coincidentally, she was involved in the theft of the sacred royal medallion of my Qin clan. Today, if the medallion doesn't appear, we shall kill this woman here and strip her clothes in public. I really want to see if the person who stole the medallion will appear or not, and if Qin Wentian will show himself. As the sound of the expert's voice faded, a sharp aura permeated the air. The Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Mystic Moon sect wanted to make a move against his Qin clan. In that case, he would definitely make them regret today. He wanted to see who could obstruct him today. Despicable. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect coldly replied when she heard the venomous words of the expert from the Qin clan. No matter what, you are still a celestial phenomenon ascendant, and can be considered a character with high prestige in Grand Xia. To think that you actually dared to use such despicable methods to utter such vulgar words. All of you were despicable first, yet you dare to blame me. The expert from the Qin clan roared. The sacred royal medallion is something bestowed to us by the sage sect. How precious is it? You all actually dared to steal it? In order to retrieve the medallion, I will use any method at all costs. Those from the Qin clan were also provoked by Junyu's words. Junyu, the genius of the Pill Emperor Hall back then, had brought the sacred royal medallion out to temper himself. Now that he had returned, the status of the Pill Emperor Hall would definitely soar up to the heavens. Who would dare to antagonize them? As for their Qin clan, they only had 3 medallions every 100 years. How could they waste one of them? What a joke, stealing it. How shameless. A disciple of your Qin clan was killed because of his incompetence, yet you are trying to frame him as a thief? Although it wasn't easy for the leader of the Mystic Moon sect to be angered, when she heard how the Qin clan was planning to deal with Bai Qing, she couldn't help but be infuriated. The expert from the Qin clan flicked his sleeves as he coldly snorted. Today, I will definitely deal with this woman. Who dares to obstruct me? B. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect stepped out as a powerful aura gushed forth, exuding a sense of coldness. She turned her gaze in the direction of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, only to see the Ouyang ancestor standing there calmly, not bothering to look at the leader of the Mystic Moon sect. Since he didn't move, those from the Jiang clan naturally wouldn't move as well. The countenance of the leader of the Mystic Moon sect paled as she stared in the direction of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. However, it was as though the Ouyang aristocrat clan didn't sense her gaze. He was as steady as a mountain, not moving an inch. What's wrong? Does the leader of the Mystic Moon sect have any objections? The Qin ancestor also stepped out, laughing coldly. With a wave of his hand, a palm imprint appeared, locking Bai Qing in place. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect stared at the frail body of Bai Qing, feeling a little unbearable in her heart. This child Bai Qing, she was very fond of her. However, now that the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan didn't act, just relying on the Mystic Moon sect, let alone saving Bai Qing, even the experts from the Mystic Moon sect would be buried here. Could it be that they really had to give up like this and watch as Bai Qing was humiliated to death? You guys have already agreed to act, and you have already obtained the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Why are you not acting now? The leader of the Mystic Moon sect transmitted her voice to the Ouyang ancestor, only to hear the Ouyang ancestor sighing. You have also seen the current situation. The Pill Emperor Hall has 3 ascendants, in addition to Junyu's current status. If our Ouyang aristocrat clan acts now, we would be offending the Pill Emperor Hall as well. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect felt rage in her heart when she heard this, yet there was nothing she could do. And in the crowd, Qin Wentian, who had transformed into Di Tian, had been watching everything. He didn't expect the appearance of Junyu and the Pill Emperor Hall. Not only that, it seemed like the Ouyang ancestor wanted to break his promise and watch from the sidelines. Senior ancestor, Qin Wentian has already arrived. Even if we fight, we won't be at a disadvantage, right? Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. The eyes of the Ouyang ancestor flickered as he stared at the crowd, before landing on a certain person. This person was none other than Qin Wentian. He merely shook his head lightly before closing his eyes. Chapter 457. The Ouyang ancestor closed his eyes, undoubtedly indicating his stance. Junyu's appearance had completely disrupted his plans. Initially, he thought that he would be able to destroy the great Solar Qin clan, which was why he participated in this war. But now, with the appearance of 3 ascendants from the Pill Emperor Hall, in addition to Junyu's status, he didn't want to get involved in this mess anymore. The Ouyang ancestor wasn't Ouyang Quangxing. Everything he considered was for the benefit of his clan. If they fought, it wouldn't be worth it. Ancestor, our lineup isn't weak, we won't lose. Ouyang Quangxing appeared beside the Ouyang ancestor as he spoke. Quangxing, shut up. The Ouyang ancestor opened his eyes and berated Ouyang Quangxing, his words causing Ouyang Quangxing's countenance to turn ashen. He knew that no matter how outstanding his talent was, it was impossible for him to change the Ouyang ancestor's consideration of the benefits of the Ouyang clan. But given the current situation, if the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan didn't participate, the Mystic Moon sect could only rest assured. Based on Qin Wentian's personality, if Bai Qing were to face such a situation, he would rather die than fight. Could it be that Qin Wentian had to face the same situation as before? Ouyang Quangxing, Fan Lo Chu Mang, all of you come with me. At this moment, a voice drifted over, causing Ouyang Quangxing's gaze to stiffen. Turning his eyes over, he saw a silhouette among the crowd. It was none other than Qin Zheng. These few years, they had fought alongside Qin Zheng, and were already familiar with each other. What's the matter? Ouyang Quangxing transmitted his voiceover. Yin Mingyi has unlocked the secret of the ancient kingdom. All of you come with me. However, we're still missing one person. Qin Zheng spoke, his words causing Ouyang Quangxing to abruptly turn his gaze onto Di Tian. They had communicated through voice transmissions before and knew that this person was none other than Di Tian. Di Tian, come with me to the ancient kingdom. At this moment, Ouyang Quangxing spoke. Qin Wentian's countenance faltered as he inclined his head to look at Ouyang Quangxing. Given the current situation, he didn't dare to leave. You won't be able to change anything. The ancient kingdom has discovered something and might need our help. Ouyang Quangxing continued. Qin Wentian could only nod his head as he silently departed, following Ouyang Quangxing and the others as they sped towards the ancient kingdom. Their departure wasn't noticed by many. However, the leader of the Mystic Moon Hall sighed in her heart as she stared at Bai Qing. Her heart was filled with an intense reluctance. Could it be that the humiliation of her Mystic Moon Hall was impossible to wash away? Release Bai Qing. My Mystic Moon sect can pretend that nothing has happened. The sacred royal medallion wasn't stolen by my Mystic Moon sect. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect sighed in her heart. When the crowd heard the words of the leader of the Mystic Moon sect, they couldn't help but to sigh in their hearts. For the sake of Bai Qing, the leader of a transcendent power was willing to ignore the humiliation the Mystic Moon sect suffered. From this, one could see how desperate she was right now. She only wished to protect Bai Qing. I mengs I chen I insect I they I di yang I sect and iu. Can the ultimate arts of Grand Xia be more valuable than the sacred royal medallion? At this moment, a cold voice drifted over. Chun Fan, a 5th-level heavenly dipper genius from the Great Solar Qin clan, stepped out. He walked to the back of Bai Qing and placed his palms on her shoulders as a terrifying heat enveloped her. Chun Fan inclined his head, staring at the skies as he coldly stated, I know. Since you said that the sacred royal medallion would appear today, it must have already arrived. If you still don't show yourself, don't blame me for using some methods. In the air, a fluctuation of aura abruptly gushed forth. Abruptly, several ascendants inclined their heads, their eyes gleaming with sharpness. The experts from the Great Solar Qin clan all soared up into the skies, their countenances ice-cold. There was actually someone hiding in the skies. As the sound of Chun Fan's voice faded, he released a trace of his aura. Without waiting for the experts from the Great Solar Qin clan to soar up into the skies, a raging wind gusted up. The crowd inclined their heads only to see the clouds churning. After which, a terrifying silhouette descended from the skies, appearing in the vision of the crowd. This silhouette was extremely high up in the skies, and after several tens of breaths of time, it hovered in the air. A gigantic creature with a wingspan of 3,000 meters. Its cold eyes were filled with a terrifying baleful aura. This silhouette was none other than the great rock in the clouds. Who was the great rock in the clouds? It could only be Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, as expected, he didn't die. Today he appeared once again. Wentian Gij. Bai Qing was both shocked and overjoyed when she saw Qin Wentian appearing. She had thought that she would never be able to see Qin Wentian again. But now her Wentian Gij was actually still alive. Although he had transformed into a great rock, he was still here, concerned about her. Qin Wentian. The experts from the great Solar Chun clan all had gleams of sharpness in their eyes. According to the letter, the sacred royal medallion has appeared today. Could it be that killing Chen Wang and seizing the medallion was your doing? The experts from the Pill Emperor Hall all stood up as they stared at the silhouette in the air. Their memories of this silhouette were too deep. It was precisely this great rock that severed the Pill Emperor Hall, causing them to fall from the peak of their glory days. Luckily, Junyu had returned. Is this the bird? Junyu inclined his head and stared at the great rock in the air as he asked. He's the incarnation of Qin Wentian. There's no way to reverse this. He's still in the form of a great rock. The Pill Emperor replied, his words causing Junyu to coldly laugh. Borrowing the energy of heaven and earth, connecting with demonic divinities. How can such a secret art be reversed? The Pill Emperor nodded his head. Such a heaven-defying art was indeed extremely difficult to reverse. Unless his cultivation base reached the Empyrean realm, he would forever remain as a great rock, unable to transform into a human. Everyone stared at Qin Wentian in the air. Even those rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings had complicated expressions on their faces, as they stared at the silhouette in the air. Qin Wentian was the previous ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. His fame was short-lived, but the things he did shook Grand Xia. Such a person would only appear once in 1,000 years. How could they not look up to Qin Wentian, viewing him as their idol? Who would dare to split apart the Pill Emperor Hall for the sake of his love? Regardless of his courage or talent, he was the target of countless youths. Qin Wentian's legend was spread throughout Grand Xia. There were too many who worshipped him. But every time he faced danger, who would dare to stand on his side? Little Qin Wentian Gij has let you down. The great rock stared at Bai Qing below as a warm expression appeared on his face. I've also let down your master, as well as the seniors of the Mystic Moon sect. Chen Wang was killed by me. Bai Qing and the leader of the Mystic Moon sect started. Bai Qing shook her head. Since it was done by Wentian Gij, there's no need for me to be the one to repay the debt. It doesn't matter if I die. I only hate the Chun clan for killing my sisters and humiliating my master. Who can say clearly about the grudges of the world? Qing, how can you take responsibility for this matter? The leader of the Mystic Moon sect interjected. The grudge between Chen Wang and Qin Wentian has already been established since the ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings. 3 years ago, Chen Wang wanted to kill Qin Wentian. So how could Qin Wentian kill him? If the Chun clan had the ability, they would have killed Qin Wentian for the sake of Chen Wang. However, they chose to take revenge on my Mystic Moon sect without knowing the truth. Qing, you have to remember this. As a person, the most important thing is to be able to face your own heart. Now that Qin Wentian is willing to appear in front of the great Solar Chun clan for you, there's no reason for our Mystic Moon sect to retreat. There's no other reason, just because the great Solar Chun clan killed members of our Mystic Moon sect and humiliated our disciples. Since the great Solar Chun clan still refuses to release them, our Mystic Moon sect shall be enemies with the great Solar Chun clan for generations to come. The leader of the Mystic Moon sect's voice was ice cold. Yet the experts from the Chun clan all laughed coldly. The Chun clan's ancestor swept his gaze over to Qin Wentian. The sacred royal medallion should be in your hands, right? Release her. Qin Wentian stared at the Chun clan's ancestor as he coldly commanded. Release her? Hand over the sacred royal medallion, and I will release her. You should understand that she isn't important to my Chun clan. The Chun clan's ancestor coldly laughed. 10 breaths of time. If you don't release her, the sacred royal medallion will be destroyed. The sacred royal medallion appeared in the claws of the great rock. It was as though as long as the Chen clan refused to release Qin Wentian, he would shatter the medallion into pieces. The countenance of the Chen clan's ancestor stiffened. Based on the current situation, the Pill Emperor Hall wanted to capture Qin Wentian no matter what. The Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan wouldn't dare to act recklessly. His Chen clan wasn't just slightly stronger than the Mystic Moon sect, they could easily suppress them. Even if Fairy Qingmei was added into the equation, his Chen clan would still be able to deal with them. For this battle, the Chen clan's ancestor had absolute confidence in their victory. And this was still under the circumstance that the 3 experts from the Pill Emperor Hall were only dealing with Qin Wentian. If the Pill Emperor Hall helped their Chen clan to deal with the Mystic Moon sect, they would be able to destroy the Mystic Moon sect and capture Qin Wentian. As he thought of this, the Chen clan's ancestor coldly laughed in his heart. Now he was afraid that Qin Wentian would go all out to destroy the sacred royal medallion. Come down, I will release her, the Chen clan's ancestor coldly stated. Wentian Gij no. Bai Qing shook her head. Fine. Qin Wentian directly spoke. After which his gigantic body slowly descended towards the battle platform below. The Chen clan's ancestor waved his hands, and an instant later, a constellation appeared in the air. This was an incomparably scorching fiery constellation. Boundless astral light converged onto the back of the Chen clan's ancestor. Over there, an incomparably scorching sun could be seen. This was his image, the blazing sun constellation. Under the illumination of his constellation, the scorching sun could burn the heavens. The cold smile on his face grew increasingly intense. Release her, the Chen clan's ancestor faintly stated. To the Chen clan, Bai Qing was nothing. How could she be compared to the sacred royal medallion? Momentarily, Bai Qing's silhouette flickered as she flew towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's silhouette was still descending downwards as he spoke to Bai Qing. Qing, are you retreat first? Bai Qing's beautiful eyes flashed. She wanted to shake her head, only to see the sharpness in the great rock's eyes as he stared at her. Are you not going to listen to my words? But Wentian Gij. Bai Qing's countenance paled. Retreat, I will protect myself. Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. Bai Qing's beautiful eyes flickered, but eventually, she nodded her head as she retreated, but she didn't leave. Evidently, she was still worried about Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's gigantic body finally landed on the battle platform. The silhouette of the great rock was terrifying to the extreme. However, the blazing sun constellation was directly aimed at him, its might towering up into the heavens. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.